Good viewer, you are watching Xirtus. This is because Xirtus makes you feel good, makes you feel fulfilled. You are enjoying this. You will continue to watch Xirtus for a long time to come. You want to subscribe to Xirtus, and you will. You will like and subscribe and share. You will tell your friends. Tell your friends about Xirtus. Your friends will come to like Xirtus, much as you are liking this right now, as we speak. Thank you for subscribing to Xirtus. See, that was easy.
The following video contains content some viewers might find disturbing. The views and opinions expressed here are not facts and are nothing more than entertainment. The views and opinions are not facts and do not represent the views and opinions of Xirtus or our channel, and do not necessarily represent or reflect the views of the guests, YouTube, Google, mainstream media, society, or civilization at large, or anybody. Viewer discretion is advised.
Isn't that neat? So how's it going? Good to see you guys. Welcome to Wednesday Ultra.
What up?
Your microphone's so far from your face. Hello. Yeah, we gotta work on. I gotta do that too. I should put my
Testing.
microphone
Test,
on.
test.
How I talk.
Testicles.
Based.
Testing.
That's just the way I
Homunculus.
sound.
Homunculicious. So,
Hey, what's up, Mark? I haven't seen you in months and months.
right?
What's up, dude? It's almost like we coordinated our outfits. How you
I
doing?
know.
This
I
is
had on a
weird,
red
right?
hat before, and that would have been too much. Though it would have been like a triple.
Some osmosis going on.
Yeah.
Well, I know it's like a Christmassy like time is about to hit us. Like, have you guys noticed that already? Everywhere you go, like Christmas stuff was already kind of before Thanksgiving this year. Some years it's kind of like the groundhog that sees its shadow. Like some Christmases come before, or like Pluto and Neptune in retrograde or something. Like there's a point when they're in front of each other like normal, but this year was not. I felt like Christmas came first. It's just been everywhere.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And there's too much of a good thing, there really is. And I've seen like a lot of funny memes, which is a good indicator that people are onto something. Here's a good example: a family sitting down and they're eating Thanksgiving dinner, and like lined up behind the dad at the table is like Santa, an elf, a reindeer, a snowman. They're like all crowding over his shoulders, and he's like, "Relax, we're still eating." So that's like the sentiment is like people are like too much. You know what I mean? Like, please let us enjoy like orange and brown leaves and a turkey for just a couple weeks,
Yeah, I feel like I think Thanksgiving's probably one of my favorite. Like it might be my favorite holiday. Like it just seems so based.
You don't want the same colors soaking into your eyes all year round either. That's not natural, I mean, we go indoors and we put up the decorations that look like the outdoors for that season. You put a pumpkin on the table, you put a little brown basket with some gourds in it, you know what I mean? You don't do that in the spring. That's when you bring the flowers in and stuff. You're trying to keep your natural rhythm, even though you're indoors.
That's interesting too, because you're like matching colors of seasons that people stop living in. So like the cities, they have no idea why they're wearing red or green at whatever time of year. They're just like
right, even with winter white, right? Like people will be like, no white after Labor Day, but then when it comes Christmas time, people are like, oh, now you can wear white. It's winter white. It's like, yeah, because it would be snowing at that time. So,
dude, we
like
got
some feng shui going on there with like the seasons and everything, right? That we've been conditioned. And question, Xirtus, so I finished Naked Lunch, right? And that intro, is that your way of conditioning your audience to like almost like a barbarous words type of thing to prepare them for what's to come? Because that thing is so crazy and psychedelic, bro. What's up with that?
I think maybe a little bit, but also it's just like it's my own taste. I think to be honest, that's probably like at the most reductionist level. I really like horrible things. I like the Tony Hawk soundtrack. I like Resident Evil, the game. I like Waking Life, the way it feels to be in a theater looking at Waking Life. And I miss Nickelodeon commercials and MTV like spaz stick TV and things
How
like
old
that.
are you, Xirtus?
I'm 34. Yeah.
Oh,
actually,
actually, a little bit older than
I have to
Mark and
remember. Yeah, see, that's the thing. I've seen a lot of the horrible TV stuff that they like warned you against. They're like, this can cause seizures. I probably need to put like warning labels into some of my stuff. That could be a thing. But I'm trying to make it pretty okay, it seems like. But also the compression articles are an issue. And like even if you try to get rid of the compression articles, you're going to get some compression article. And that is a feature. It's like a glitch, but a glitch is a feature because that's a mutation of this time.
You lost me at compression articles, bro. What's that?
So like if you're watching a video and it has glitches or pixels, the way it looks when it looks wrong, when there's artifacts. Mm-hmm. So like it doesn't look perfect, right? That idea. Then the reason
like
it doesn't
the
look
trailing, when you see like the trailing of it or whatever.
Yeah, because sometimes what they're doing is they're saying, okay, a complete straight line right here. There's like a bunch of different pixels, and we're gonna just say this whole straight line is like this color or something like that. Or they just arbitrarily, just to save room in data, they try to get rid of as much data as possible. And like, well, these lines are basically red, and it's not completely true. And sometimes there'll be like artifacts because of that. Or you'll see like when you're watching TV in the shadows, you'll a bunch of squares, like it starts to glitch up. It's because of artifacts and things like that. But that's okay.
Micro blocking.
Yeah.
Packet delivery failure.
I would prefer to have, analog tape for that reason, because analog tape makes cooler effects and errors. But
I was just wondering, it's very, very schizo, very Xirtus like. So I love it. I'm here for it.
I do like the idea of having esoteric warning, probably, I think is the idea. But it seems to be working.
I have to find a lighter. I'll be.
Oh,
He's gonna change his outfit again?
I guess. I mean, it seems to be working. I was going to say, like, one of the things I was going to open with, but I forgot to, is like, while this happened, we've got like new members. More Fiends have been a member for a month, which is awesome, which means it's like some holdover. Reese Fitzgerald just became a member. Travis gifted another membership, and then, which is awesome. Thanks, Travis, because you've been doing that. And then Tertis LaShawn became a member. So a bunch of people becoming members, and like it goes with noticing, I think there's like hundreds of new members, like lots and lots of new members. So thank you guys for joining, and for people who've been gifting memberships, because yeah, there's a lot of content that they'll try to not allow for public, and we'll try to do it live, and then if they don't let it there, we put it into the members only. But that's their plan, not necessarily mine. But it seems to be cool. It seems to be working out, so we can talk about crazier things.
I think we should all keep changing our clothes and hats throughout the.
I'm a fan. I could do it. Like the most successful people seem to wear the same outfits, right? I think
Had a podcast record for most outfits,
but
so that's probably possible.
But yeah, wait. There was a thing that I saw recently, because like Hedwig and the Angry Inch dude who made, you know, Hedwig and the Angry Inch, right? He made this music. What's his Hedwig? Angry Inch. At some point, this has come up in your lives. I'm sure you've probably seen this. I'll pull it up. Sorry.
Which is bizarre because I had never heard of this thing.
You never seen this
until-
musical?
No, I've never seen that. And
Oh,
I
it's such
saw
a good
the-
musical. It's amazing.
I saw the other one that you talked about, and it debuted on my birthday, which is really weird, especially with the name.
Well, don't. Yeah, you like want spoilers for everybody, but let's walk through the gradual process. This is a labyrinth in its own. So let's just walk you through it. So September 2001. I just get back from Europe as a kid. I just get back, like, I think it's the 8th or 9th. I think it's the 9th or so. The 10th, maybe. I see, I think it's when it is. We see Donnie Darko, and then Hedwig and the Angry Inch, because it's playing at the Nickelodeon in Santa Cruz. So these are like the only showings of that movie, I'm pretty sure. Because like right after that, the whole world changed. But that's like peak 99, 2000 world era, before September 11th, when everything was like all go. But Hedwig, amazingly not for kids musical about an East German who suffers a botched sex change operation, right? And it's one of the greatest musicals of our time, I'll be honest. But then he went and he's just recently made this new thing called Homunculus Anthem, or yeah,
Anthem Homunculus.
Anthem Homunculus, right? So John Cameron Mitchell's new musical podcast, because he didn't get it produced on TV, so he just went with it anyway, which is based, and it's all a musical about like a telethon to help someone make their tumor go viral, is what he says, quote unquote.
Do you know where they were as they were writing that thing, dude?
In William Burrows' house, right? Is that right?
That's wild.
The
They're in this sicko's house. It's probably
Right.
haunted. And he probably knew about homunculus because he was writing about it. I've stumbled across some homunculus lore in his work.
Well, what did you do this week? What did you do this week? Let's talk about, what did we say before we started the show? We're like, well, let's get back to each other. You know, you like William Burrows? We just
I
talked about
don't.
William.
No.
And then we were like, you should watch Naked Lunch, right? How'd that happen?
No, so what happened was I had hit you up a while back to get you on my show, and you left me on red, and then out of nowhere you hit me up. Tell the truth, Xirtus. You hit me up and you're like, "Hey, bro, you should come on today." And I'm like, I have a family, Xirtus. I can't just jump on a podcast. You're like, all right, let's do it next week. And I was like, what do you want to talk about? And we're like, all right, well, I'm reading Cities of the Dark Knight or the Red Knight by Burrows, right?
That's
Unfortunately.
right.
And then
Because
you're
you
like,
don't like it.
because I don't, and I hated it. And
Why did you hate it? Wait, before we go, let's spiral for a second. I mean,
So the reason I hate it is because this guy's one of those like Crowley types, right? Where it's like he was part of this counterculture type of thing, but he's filthy. You know, he's very filthy. The writing is filthy, but people like either love him or hate him. Some people are like, oh, this guy's a prophet. And then some other people are like, this dude is, you know, everything and some of what you could possibly think of the most vile people that there is. And he's writing about these things that are kind of sort of autobiographical in a sort of way. He's writing these very grotesque books and stories. And then that's when you were like, oh, have you watched Naked Lunch? And I'm like, no, I've never seen it. So I did watch it. And you know, WTF? What, you know, what?
That book got passed around in the 80s and the 90s. That book was really popular. Like with
Dude.
young kids, like high school kids, like before, you know, like a long time before Fight Club, that was like kind of the novel that the kids were just passing around for a lark, you know, trip each other out.
Oh, Naked Lunch is a wonderful. It's like the movie is a like they're like, we don't know how much Burrows will ever get out. Let's try to combine as much Burrows
Everything of
into-
his philosophy. Yeah. And this is something I want to talk about today, because like the insectoids and all that. So that's really an interesting concept. But yeah, so I feel like this past week I was sort of initiated, and it's really weird because Mark and I talked about this on our show, The Completion of the Volcanic Affair, where his writing method, right, the cut up method, because he was a chaos magician, is a way of, right, at the beginning of the movie, exterminate all rational thought. And that kind of sort of goes with his whole writing, where you're subjecting yourself to almost like not MK Ultra in a sort of way, but some sort of abuse, like as you're reading these words, because words are very powerful, right? And the whole reasoning for the cut up method is to kind of sort of hack the matrix, right? To be able to throw maybe the insectoid archon demiurge off of his game, right? Because he's already written all of reality and all of history. So by you taking a piece of work, cutting it up, you're kind of sort of jumbling up the timeline, and the future comes through, right? He was doing this cut up method. He was allegedly predicting like plane crashes and all these different things because of it, because he saw it as a magical divinatory method in his writing. And that's why sometimes his books are a little schizo, because it is cut up. It was a text that was already written, rearranged to form new ideas, and right, this brings forth something new. But text itself is initiatory in a way, and I want to talk about some other stuff, because I listened to your interview on My Family Thinks I'm Crazy today, and it was excellent, right? I want to talk about John the Baptist and all that, but the idea of text being used to unlock, like, you know, and initiate the person into the mysteries. But these guys were quite literally trying to obliterate the consciousness of the reader in some sort of weird way.
Who you really okay, all right. So like, let's remind people though, in the movie version of reality, what is the writer constantly doing, right? From the scene that you're looking at, try to describe, right?
You asking me?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah, in Naked Lunch, because you just saw it, right?
Yeah. So what's the question? He's trying. I don't even know what he was trying to do, bro. It's like. All
right. Well, from this picture,
I don't want to spoil the movie. So essentially, what he's an exterminator, which he actually was in real life at one point, and he's addicted to allegedly the stuff that they use to exterminate the bugs. And then I guess a butthole talking bug at the very beginning, like, it tells him that he has to write a report because his wife is actually not human, right? And this plays into the whole idea that he murdered his wife, doing a William Tell act and all these different things. But I don't want to give up too much of the movie, but essentially it starts off by this insectoid giving him an assignment to go and write a report about, I don't know what it was supposed to be about, but dude, it's so crazy.
about Interzone. He has to write a report about Interzone. Do you know what Interzone? Interzone's real. Did you know about Interzone? Interzones are any interzone, really. But like Tangia was an interzone during the war. So I mean,
well, it made me think
Yugoslavia was kind of an interzone, right?
It made me think of like the mob zone for a second, or like the shadow realm, or like the upside down.
Like a politicized version of a liminal space, a boundary. You know,
Yeah.
I've never heard of it. I only know about the spiral zone.
Robert
about the Twilight Zone.
Anton Wilson,
Oh yeah, I forgot that one.
Open Borders. Is that the one he has? Or like, he has a video on borders talking about psychological borders, which is pretty interesting.
So it was very Chapel Perilous, this movie, right? Like that's essentially what a Chapel Perilous is. Like he couldn't tell where the barrier of reality and this insectoid realm like merged, right? Like 1 second you think he's normal, you're like, oh, thank God, some normalcy or whatever for a little bit, and then the freaking typewriter like turns into some crazy entity or something. I don't know, man. It's just...
Well, it's okay. So part of the deal is that there's probably actually like AMT, right? So alpha methyltryptamine and a lot of these like psychedelic tryptamines, which have, you know, all sorts of effects, including dopamine and serotonin reuptake and regulation of hormones and histones in protein. So actually help with anti-aging and everything else. But the other thing is they're like super trippy, right? Like this is a super trippy thing to take, and it looks a lot like a yellow powder. It looks a lot like this.
Is that what he was taking in the movie? That's
I've always suspected that's kind of what William Burrows is talking about, particularly if you read Burrows in Paris quitting heroin, because the way he goes about quitting heroin is he takes a bunch of junkie, right? And junkie talks about all the other things he has to do, and they talk about some like 1950s version of ayahuasca, which I think is IT-290. And if you look at IT-290, that's like the U.S. government's name for alpha methyl.
I'm sure you're probably right about the chemical or the intoxicant, because
I mean, it could be a different chemical, but like I think that's a big thing. Is like clearly he's taking drugs in the movie. It's a guy who's eating his bug extermination powder, and he's finding out that a lot of people might know this or something because he's been purchasing too much of the bug powder and not doing the work.
It sounds like the kind of thing a writer would use, as a device. I mean, writers are people who write stuff down. So you hear someone tell you an interesting story. I knew a guy that actually got high off of this bug killing chemical. Wow. And then, okay, let me write that down on my little notepad. Then you're a professional writer. What am I going to write about? You look in your notepad. You're like, wow, what could happen with, that?
It's also like it's like bath salts too,
Yeah.
So like
at the end, he's like,
what I mean
that
to say
you're a
is like
writer.
when things are very detailed like that, it's more likely to be based on real life. It's like, where would those details, like very much like Chuck Palahniuk, like where's he making soap out of people? Like it's all stuff he heard and wrote down.
Yeah, at the end they ask him like, prove to us that you're a writer, bro, and he had destroyed his stuff. So it's like prove to us. But yeah, I do believe that a lot of and that's the issue when it comes to the occult or the esoteric or whatever you want to call it, where you have to go through a lot of BS to find these nuggets of esoteric knowledge, and that's what his writing is like. And I actually encountered Burrows on an OTO forum while I was doing research for my Homunculus book, and they were like, hey, what these, the trans migrants, I don't know if you read the book, but in this book, like what they do in this particular scene is essentially how they are able to transfer their consciousness. Because part of the Homunculus is to you said we need transhumanism before we started recording, right? You might have said that or maybe not, but it's like, this is how these magicians are able to transfer their consciousness from one vessel to the next. They create these little things, and they just they say that's how Saint Germain was able to keep on living forever and on. He had like a little homunculus.
So they would just clone themselves?
So that's I said this before, where homunculi aren't clones, and the reason I say that is because it's more like your offspring, because you're taking your seed and you're making a new being. So kind of like a clone, maybe.
But then again, like it's like, I guess in some sense it's like parthenogenic, right? Because you're not sexually reproducing. So I mean, parthenogenic reproduction, you're just carrying on all the genetic information you had, passing it on to whatever being you're trying to. So that would essentially make it a clone, wouldn't it?
It's made from your seed. I mean, would it be masturbation? I mean, I don't know how, is that like a magical masturbation? Like, I don't know. Like it's a weird realm of things, but
definitely in the realm of sex magic for sure.
100%. And it's like, this dude's writing about stuff and writing about occult concepts, which he was, for a time, the Beats Hotel, they were doing scrying like 24 hours a day, right? And there was entities popping up in that hotel, and they were just doing all crazy sorts of magical operations. So this is a guy who is obsessed with the occult, knows a lot about it, and he's putting these little nuggets of occult knowledge in his writing that's full of just degenerate stuff. But it's like it's a sort of initiation as you're trying to, like how everyone talks about Crowley's work. Like, you have only the ones that really can put up with it are gonna get the nuggets. Like,
keep doing the Alex Jones voice. People seem to love it. 10 more.
Also, the lower levels, the Freemasons, in order for them to get past that part, they have to go through a series of like self-depreciating acts in front of their whole lodge just to be allowed to get initiated to the next degree, essentially.
A lot of butt stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and also on top of that, every time I see like bugs, any insect imagery, it just automatically my mind goes to like, is this a metaphor for parasites? and like the possibility that like he's eating, I guess, anti-parasitic or anti-insecticide, or insecticides that would normally like and kill off bugs, getting high off of it, and somehow it's unlocking him to like esoteric channels and such. So I'm wondering if this is some kind of like a metaphor for detox.
I think so. Like a lot of time, the detox is like, so if you read Junkie again, like he took certain kinds of psychedelics in order, because there were people who believed, and this is now pretty well believed by like MAPS and certain groups, that and by Alexander Shulgin, etc., that a single psychedelic experience with therapy can alleviate the need of repetition narcotics. And that was a thing that was really popular at the time, still is very popular, is repetitious use of narcotics. But there's a lot of downsides to opiates if you use them for like 30 years or something like that. So they were trying to find ways out of that. And so he was somebody who was really interested in trying to get off of opiates because he didn't have a reason to be. He'd become kind of recreationally addicted, right? So he wanted to find a way out of that.
Can I just jump in and I don't know, maybe this is a tangent. Maybe this will open up a whole nother side of this
Not now,
conversation.
Mark. Not now.
But shut up, Mark. But, nowadays we look at, as Burrows called it, junk as junk. Opium's bad. It's got this terrible connotation to it, rightly so. It ruins people's lives. And even the pharmaceutical medical grade stuff has a overwhelming tendency to ruin people's lives. But back in the day, especially in Burroughs' time, I mean, opium was considered a sort of esoteric thing. Like, in China, they described opium as a part of a healthy, it enhances the art of alchemy, sex, and court ladies. So this is from Wikipedia. But I'm like, I just wanted to go through the history real quick of opium. Not here. I was just reading this while you guys were talking. And another thing that's worth mentioning is in Egypt, Thoth was the god of opium. So yeah, very strange stuff going on with opium, going all the way back in ancient times. Having this,
Thoth is also associated with the not the crown chakra point, but the pineal gland chakra point. When you I forget what specific hertz it is, what frequency, but if you make like the ohm sound, the frequency of that is supposed to resonate in your heart chamber, so like you can actually find the note like om to feel it like in your heart. And the thoth, you're supposed to feel that tone that equates with the pineal gland. So you're supposed to make a tone like and you can, as you go up in frequency, you actually feel it raising up your nasal cavity, and then you stop when you hit a tone that's right there, and it's supposed to like activate and stimulate and exercise the pineal gland.
That's pretty rad. I'll have to try that. Sounds good. I always wondered though if it's Thoth, because it feels like it would be like Tahuti or something like that, right? Like a Tahoti. It wouldn't probably be like the sounds for the th. But I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, we have to account for the vowel shift.
Yeah.
You can only imagine if we had more languages than we do now. Some of them are so different, like Hebrew, the sounds they make in Hebrew, or some glottal stop languages in Africa. So if we had even more continents and more different kinds of people, you'd be amazed at the kinds of weird languages there were.
Yeah, David was like trying to say though that for the I don't know if he's right, but he seemed to argue that a lot of the Hebrew is better understood than we think it is because we know where it comes from.
I just mean in terms of the sounds you're making with your mouth and your throat. Manly P. Hall said that all language is universal because it all expresses the same concepts. So the ability to express concepts through sounds you make, regardless of what the sounds are, is the technology we call language.
And you also have the story of Babel, like where the Babel Tower, where like like all of one language came from one source.
Well, it strongly indicates that they were doing a lot of things right. If they had the ability to make this kind of structure that was 1 square mile at the base, that's pretty big, and not over that long time either. And then also all the people from all the realms were coming there and speaking the same languages. I mean, in some lights, it sounds, they don't go into enough detail in the Bible on any of this stuff, unfortunately, but it sounds like it would be kind of pleasant, like almost like Atlantean or utopian. And then it's like, let's scatter all these people that are getting along and able to do this and speak the same language. Let's end this, cooperation.
Stefan says Kissinger died. Oh,
wow.
Jailbreak SBF and giving him government job. Okay.
R.I.P. Dr. Killinger.
Yeah, bro.
Venture
Training.
Bros, Dr. Killinger, genius.
So I don't know. In terms of the William Burroughs thing, it's interesting because if you ask like Bing or you start looking up like who in the 20th century was most into homunculus, it'll be like Aleister Crowley, Carl Jung, and William Burroughs is one of the names that comes up, and I found that pretty interesting. And yeah, if you go through his work, like a big thing in that movie is he's addicted to the powder, but eventually they're kind of testing him to see if he's able to handle what they're really doing. And what they're really doing is they have this kind of they're milking a vallus, essentially like a cow, from its pineal glands.
The hum juice or something like that. Humdum juice or something. What was it called?
Is this a metaphor for adrenochrome?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It could be a Frazzle Drip dairy farm.
Are we allowed to say that on
Frazzle Drip? I think you can say Frazzle Drip. That one's still cool. Frazzle Drip just means at this point naked lunching because we just said so. That's what.
Don't you think there's another way to access the juice or the goods in the pineal gland? Like, doesn't it probably have another dimensional plane to it that we don't see or interact with or detect that you could access from that? Like, if everything is existing in extra dimensions, that
you can't see the pictures, can you? Sorry.
So it is possible, you know, like,
things.
and what I'm trying to say is like Twin Peaks, Garmonbozia, they're not physically taking adrenochrome.
Hey, no Twin Peaks
interdimensionally taking
spoilers,
your
bro.
Garmonbozia.
No Twin Peaks. I just started watching. I'm halfway through season 2. Don't spoil it for me, all right, bro?
Bro, it's been like 20 years.
That's the funniest thing to say, though.
No, that's great.
Of all shows, to worry about. Yeah, but I don't think spoilers exist in a show like Twin Peaks.
No,
it's the kind of show where you'll never be able. You could read books about it in college and still watch it over and over again and not get it. Is the point? I don't know.
No, ask David Lynch, bro, if he wants you to watch it first or read all about it.
That was an initiation too. Like the first season, it's like, oh, this is kind of boring. It's kind of interesting though, and it's like when you get to like a quarter through season 2, it's like, oh, now they're cooking with gas. Now we're getting to the good stuff, right? So it's like, but you had to survive.
Like, let's cancel this right at that point.
They're like,
but then the movie Fire Walk with Me came, and it was exactly what people wanted. And then honestly, the reboot is beyond genius. So you have a lot to look forward to.
You know, you guys are touching on an interesting topic because
mugwump. That's what
the
it
idea. Yeah, some mudwump. Yeah, mugwump or something like that. So the idea of let's talk about the Philosopher's Stone in alchemy. Everyone thinks it's an actual stone. Well, what if it's not? What if it's like a breakthrough of reality or something? So we're talking about, what was it, Frazzle Drip or whatever it is that you're talking about, and then it's
there's like a book like that he has where people are driving around in a van and they're just like at the teats of one of these mugwumps. Like, you understand? Like, it goes deep. Keep going.
So the idea of this thing that you extract from whatever, it being like a more metaphysical aspect or like something else, you know, on a different level of reality, because we think of like, you know, Manly P. Hall also talks about the 7 different ways to interpret a text. Well, maybe there's how alchemy also says the alchemist works on 4 different layers of reality simultaneously. So what if he's you know, there's the practical stuff that you can draw from the teat of this alien at the top, right? But then there's also the metaphysical, where when you look within, you're able to also milk that in some sort of weird psychedelic way. So I think there might be multiple layers here at work, but yeah, that's an interesting thing.
That Manly P. Hall actually included a recipe from Hermes Trismegistus to alchemize your own Philosopher's Stone, and it's in Secret Teaching of All Ages. And it's literally, you listen to the recipe and you're like, it's too annoying to deal with, and that's why. You know what I mean? Like, so it might be possible, it might actually work, but when you listen to the steps of it, it is considering extra dimensions, because it's like, not only are you collecting a certain thing on a certain day of the year under a certain phase of the moon, like some dewdrop, you know, leaf, and then you have to like sing something to it, you know, so there's like a whole bunch of things that just sound like nonsense, you know what I mean? So it's almost hard to conceptualize, to be that open-minded. So you're like, that sounds ridiculous. That's like so much weeks of work and just sounds like it has 0% chance of doing anything, you know?
But speaking of sorry to interrupt, but like, speaking of the Philosopher's Stone, aren't there people today that are like that are capable of creating monatomic gold?
Yeah, so for sure.
Wouldn't that make that literal rather than metaphysical?
Well, that's
what are they making? What are they making gold out of?
I don't know.
I think, yeah, like, so there's also, you can look at like linear accelerators that literally are producing atom by atom because they electrocute, or they have a
People are printing
accelerator.
gold?
Yeah, but atom by atom.
And never heard this.
They've been doing this since.
Alchemized
Yeah,
gold.
and they say it's very expensive because they can only produce a very small amount of gold at a time, right? But they've been doing
like 24 karat gold.
Yeah, like it's probably the purest gold,
Right.
you'll ever find. But
that's a big deal, man. There's your philosopher's stone. By the way, that's the entire point of the thing, is to make gold.
And some people say, you know, and so that's something they've had since the 50s or 60s. But under Bakersfield in California, the Grapevine, and you know, I think Apex, what's it called, Mark SOQUEL and Jeremiah Prop, like these people know more about like the technique of this, but it's very expensive. So what they end up doing is being near a hydroelectric power plant or a nuclear power plant. But again, since you're printing only atoms, it would be great if they could get it to a nanoscopic size, because then you could print thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of atoms in an array at once. And that's kind of the hope, is if you could nanosize this technology, you know, you could have many accelerators.
I wonder, like, if that was the whole purpose of utilizing cymatics back then.
Right. The more logical thing that they're starting to think is that with sonication, like certain frequencies would pull certain electrons towards certain kinds of molecules. And if there's already something as a kernel, then it would likely want to be like the thing that it is. But that seems to work better with things like carbon, right? Like you seem to be able to like radiate almost anything, and then what's left is carbon.
So
a lot of the time.
In this conspiracy realm, are atoms a thing? Like, are atoms fake and gay, or do we accept mainstream science when atoms are a thing?
So I like how everything that people think is science started out as like Jesuit poetry, and Jesuits Jesuits consider science poetry. You know, for real. If you look at Lemaire, Teilhard Chardin, like
Big Bang came from the Vatican.
I just say atoms are fake. Yeah, I think.
Well, because when people say atoms, what they're talking about, I think, is not
the smallest measure, the smallest individual particle.
That's not true, right? But like a particle, the idea of a particle or some kind of material that's spinning around that is making orbitals, I think it's reasonable to talk like from a monadical sense that things are made up of actual electrons that are spinning. I believe in electrons still.
Okay.
I think, what's his name? There's a guy.
That's not the original definition of atom, but.
Yeah, well, that's true also, because like monadicism has changed. But the thing is, when people look in school, they always show these little dots.
Atom is atom. Atom meant God.
I mean, I think spirit or Geist, you know,
really?
if you get deeper.
I thought it was a reference to Adam, like Adam and Eve.
No.
Well, Adam is a reference to atom, meaning God.
Can we take it down a notch and talk Google Earthling? Well, we're gonna do that, I think, tomorrow.
This is an
David
Hansen,
Hansen, thank you for being here. Yeah.
We're
gonna do Ancient Civilizations tomorrow with David Hansen. He's gonna be on tomorrow, so we'll talk.
Oh, that's David Hansen?
Yeah.
Oh, shout out David Hansen.
Yeah. Base stuff though. Yeah.
What's he want us to talk about? We'll do it.
We'll do Paleo River stuff tomorrow. That'll be the plan.
The reason I bring up the atom, right? Because atomical or atom, whatever you want to call him, right? That's also maybe like a tip of the hat to that as well. But the idea that alchemists, if everything consists of atoms, everything, right? That was the whole reason. They could rearrange matter in some certain type of way.
Right, that's what they meant by atom at that point in history. They meant the smallest possible particle.
Yes. And if you're able to, how you're saying, right? So you brought in cymatics, which is really interesting. I learned recently that a bird in the morning sings at a certain frequency so that the trees grow better because they're resonating. Like, that was the wildest thing, because you have Michael Meyer, who did the Atalantifugians, and he did like these alchemical plates, but he also had like a sort of song or poetry to go with it. So it's making me think of like the music of the spheres of like, was that Kepler, the one that had the music of the spheres, where he quite literally transcribed the music of every single celestial
we're just aware of these processes.
And the problem is, when people see an atom, they're thinking of like these marbles attached with toothpicks to each other. And so really, it's like, if you thought of the Earth as a marble or something, like, no, there's a lot of stuff in the Earth that's like living. And the same thing with like anything that you're thinking that's like, it's not a solid thing. Then there's pentaquarks. They're showing pentaquarks.
That's why it's important to define it, because the Greeks didn't know about neutrons and electrons. The Greeks thought the atom was
even a neutron's not the smallest thing. Even pentaquarks are not the smallest thing. Like,
sure.
The quarks,
what I really wanted to
of
say is
things.
I don't believe in the smallest possible thing, because it's fractal. So they're gonna keep going. There is no smallest possible thing. You're gonna come out the other end, the largest possible thing. It's kind of like a mind of madness type thing where you can't.
But I think that's
find the smallest.
That's not a bad thing though. So that's what's more interesting about the omega point. This idea that
True things are always good.
If it makes a lot more sense, because if all of a sudden you have evolution and everything existing, like all of consciousness, anything from the beginning of time until the end of time, but time is the radiation of particles, and then anything outside of that is beyond time. It's not just outside of it, it's also, it could be made up of that. So spirit or energy being slowed down for time, anything that happens is also happening.
Everything
aware
is
of it.
The only place time takes place is within consciousness. Time is not the physics. Time is the experience of it.
But like, so that means then
moving
at the
from
end
point
of
to point.
near the end of all time, or even maybe at the most ending point of time, that everything that is accumulated in knowledge also is at the very beginning of all time, because it's before time. So any accumulated information in time is outside of time. It even exists before time exists. That makes more sense. So that means that this thing is stacking in complexity as we stack in complexity. It actually integrates our complexity into its
I think it's
primordial
only
nature.
our consciousness moving in that direction, in the upward direction. I think it's all built. It's all there. And instead of going around in circles, I think we can ascend and we can descend spiritually and intellectually, and in all different directions. You could be like Egyptians, where you're using like cymatics to move around stones, or you know what I mean? You can imagine sci-fi wise all kinds of different directions you could go with technology, but you do get to the same endpoint. Eventually, it's like a pachinko game where the ball is going down. I heard someone say this the other day, and it was great. It's like a pachinko game where the odds are the ball goes down. It's like, wow, it went left, right? Oh my gosh, it's going all the way left. It always goes down to the bottom. You know what I mean? So it's like you can have a variance of experience and infinitely, but it's always, the thing has the same shape in totality, and it's always working the same process.
I heard Jaw say that time is a man-made construct, but I don't know. Again, I think that when we're talking about physics, we're talking about the change. We're talking about change and degradation of particles, and so anything that's made of energy.
Yeah, I
is
was
outside of
just
change.
about to mention that, because like aging is like if time was just a metaphysical concept that exists in the ether, then like why does aging exist?
Yeah, time is a material concept, right, as opposed to a divine.
The different, it's like Battleship, you know what I mean? Like you're like
I don't
A4, and that's Gunwoo right now, but then you're like B4, and that's older Gunwoo, and you're like D4, and it's like, you know what I mean? It's another point,
Sip on this
another
mug.
part of the address you need to
I
know.
wonder if another way to understand that is like entropy over like experience. Like, it's not that time is necessarily affecting material and causing it to decay. It's more like there's this force of entropy where, like, all what we're told, energy can't be created or destroyed. I think it works in that same sort of sense where you can't just have an infinite source of anything. Everything.
No, you're totally right. It's like, that's why they call life a tree, like the tree of life. It's like it's going up, and then the last thing is the leaves. Then the leaves die and go down and compost and become the roots and come back up again. It's like a toroidal field. That's what right. Life probably is. It's like a tree. So all death is the fuel for rebirth. So eternally.
Let's segue this, because we're talking about essentially almost like a reincarnation system, and this is really interesting because this has to do with what I was reading before this. And shout out to Professor Longo, the little Longo bro, because he put me on this Steiner kick, and I had him recently on my show, and we talked about like Bonaparte's little red man, so like the Bonapartean homunculus and all these different concepts. And one of the things that really stood out to me that relates to your John the Baptist concept is that, or research, that Steiner, he also talked about how when wine was introduced, the idea of reincarnation was forgotten, which I found really interesting, because you're talking about, right, reincarnation. A lot of people don't really talk about that anymore, and he kind of hints like when water was turned to wine, that was kind of like hinting at this thing. But essentially he talks about John the Baptist being the initiated version of Lazarus after he was risen from the dead. So after he went through the initiation is when John the Baptist pops up. And this is interesting because the Rosicrucians, according to Steiner, they read the Gospel of John, and I think it's the first verses of it, they repeat it almost like a sort of mantra, and they're able to do it at the same time every single day for the same amount of time at the same cadence, et cetera, and they're able to induce these visions where they're able to live through the text. And it's almost, again, it's like the reason I brought this up, because it relates to Burrows and this thing that I haven't seen anybody call this, but like grammatical entities, where he uses the text to bring forth this thing. And that links to, I've been reading Valis by Philip K. Dick, where he talks about the Nag Hammadi, right, being the, whatever he calls it, but essentially this entity that was frozen in time, and that the Gnostics were at the border of this evolution in right, this evolutionary border where they had the knowledge, but they had the knowledge almost as a sort of parasitical thing, because once you interact with it, it becomes a part of you, right? Once you interact with this parasite, for lack of a better term, then it's within you and you can keep passing it on. So essentially the logos, because the word is God and the word is alive, so is the word an entity, right? So like you get like these word entity, these word viruses that Burrows talked about. So
curse words.
Yeah, curse words and all these different things. So again, grammar does come from grimoire. I mean, that's a book of spells and essentially an instructional
And you've seen the Gilgul, right? So when you look into Jewish reincarnation, it's actually a rather popular thing it's part of the Kabbalah belief that there's 613 parts of the human being, right? Like the soul, and then that's also because there's 613 vessels and arteries and organs, and like together they count 613 parts. And then so there's different ways that reincarnation happen, and different parts of your soul reincarnate in different places at different times, right?
Oh my
different
God.
Incarnate first, right?
The Gilgul, the Dharma chakra, is described as a wheel, and this whole thing with like mysticism and like the transfers. Holy shit! It's the Dharma chakra. It's the syncretic.
Wow.
The sacral
And
chakra.
that's like, what do you call it? What's the opposite of nirvana? Siddhartha.
Well, so that's the other thing that came up recently, because we talked about Ixthys, because the Christians didn't like the cross symbol, and everyone thinks that the fish is their symbol. But if you really look into it, what they really were doing was they're making an IXOYE in a big circle, which made the Dharma chakra, right? That was the early symbol for Christianity, which I find pretty interesting.
It looks like coexist, kind of.
Well, it's interesting because I'm reading Valis, and Philip K. Dick is like, yeah, interference of God in this reality is essentially an extraterrestrial invasion of some sorts. And then he talks about how, like, right, the Christ consciousness, and this is very Gnostic. So the idea that when Jesus was baptized in the Jordan, right, the river Jordan, he was possessed by the Holy Spirit or by the Christ, right? Came down and quote unquote. Again, that's very Gnostic in nature, but that's where the Manichaeans and the Bogomils and the Cathars and all these other people come in, because they're like, John the Baptist made this happen. Like he is the guy that we should be, going after. He's the one that's teaching him all the secrets and all these different things. So I don't know if you were familiar with that, the John the Baptist being Lazarus, like the initiated version. So I guess the Power Ranger version after, like the one with the superpowers and stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting because I hadn't really connected John the Baptist with Lazarus, and like it makes a lot of sense that because of the Masonic rituals, right? That you, after your ceremonial death, become reborn, right? Like
3 days,
coffin.
yeah.
So
yeah.
It's more of a John the Baptist ritual than a Christ ritual.
In the book, An Esoteric Cosmology by Steiner. So if anyone wants to check it out, it's literally the Gospel of John. He's talking about how they're able to enter the text by meditating on it, and they're able to. They confirm that Christ, like the historical figure Christ, was a real person because they were able to see him in these visions that they were able to induce. So again, it's this very esoteric idea of like the Bible not only having like some alchemical undertones, but the actual text itself having some sort of hidden message that only, again, the initiated are able to extract, because you're able to read between the lines.
Let's initiate you right now. So like, it's not really that big of a deal. You're making it sound like Alex Jones visiting like a golf club. This is Ignatian method, right? So Ignatian method is the idea of Ignatian contemplation, which is to imagine you're in the biblical scenario or any story, right? Because like he was sick in bed, and so he was reading romance novels and war stories and Bible stories, right? And so he's imagining that you are, well, first you're supposed to pray, of course, so that's always, it's adding a spiritual aspect to your imagination, and then you're supposed to, it's almost like Scientology, but granted they're way older, the idea of imagining what you hear You know, do you hear like horns? Do you hear crickets? Or is it silent because there are no birds because you're in the center of the city? Do you hear people awake yelling in this marketplace? You know, all that kind of thing. What do you feel? What do you smell? And do you smell wheat? Do you smell yeast? Do you smell the bread baking in this market? You know, and then who are you? Imagine that you are unworthy to touch the hem of his garment. Imagine you are his garment. Imagine, you know, all these different aspects you're supposed to contemplate in the story. And so that it's pretty cool because like you can get a lot more out of a book through or any story by contemplating it, right? Because you become, this is actually just a lesson in how to imagine and become the character and read any story and to get as much out of it as possible, right? That can be a beneficial thing. But they make it sound so dark, right? Because it's like,
yeah.
But this is really just, you know.
Have you ever heard of the Rothschild Canticles by any chance?
Rothschild Canticles.
So the Rothschild Canticles is this book that I stumbled across, and I forgot how I stumbled across. I think I was doing research on Homunculus. Anyways, it's this book. It's a prayer book, right? But I think I read somewhere where there's ways of becoming a monstrosity in that particular book. Now, it's interesting because if you scroll down, look at the depictions of, I like to call it like tentacled or butthole god, because it's like this weird Cthulhu-esque.
Is it showing it big? I can't tell because it's full screen. Yeah.
On the left, on the left scroll down, it's like pretty far in. Anyways, essentially what this is a book that you're supposed to, again, meditate on. So you're supposed to meditate on these plates, and you're supposed to enter the plates, and what they're supposed to do is help you reunite yourself with the Godhead or God or this thing, right? So,
and comic books are cool. Like, also think of the Mutus Liber, right? Is that how it's spelled? Mutus Liber, which is, I think, very similarly aimed. And who was another important homunculus researcher, Marcy, right? The Bohemian Marcy, who had the Voynich manuscript, right? And so I think that comes up more and more, is the idea that you're supposed to interpret sigils your own way.
So so if you go back to Marcy, who was working and was a contemporary, I don't know if you want to show the tentacle Jesus, if you want to go down all the way.
How far is it? 50 pages in?
So there you go, right there. So you see that's supposed to be the Holy Trinity, I believe. That's supposed to be a depiction of the Holy Trinity. There's more, but right there, look at the one right there in the center. It's 44R. Check that one out. Look how trippy that is. So 44R up right there.
Ooh.
Check that out. Like, you know, this is very
Cthulhu.
Very Cthulhu-esque. You have to, but make sure you got to meditate, right, on the ridges and everything as you're looking at it. And once you're able, that's what alchemists did too. They had these plates, and they were able to meditate on these plates and enter these drawings and enter these places and essentially do their work not only in the exterior but also within this laboratory. So prayer was important to these. You know, they were natural philosophers. They didn't think they were doing anything bad because they were using things in nature, right, that God put in nature. Therefore, if I just happen to get a homunculus by mixing A plus B, get C, hey, it's okay with God, because God wouldn't have put it there if he wouldn't have wanted me to pick it up and mix it together, right? So it's just a very interesting, look at that. So he's got like, they're supposed to be rays of light, right? I mean, they're rays of light, but just the guy didn't do a good job, you know?
Wait, with the 44R?
No, these right here. So if you're looking at it right here,
these aren't supposed to be rays of light, is it?
Those are rays of light, bro. That's
really?
What they say.
The coloration on the backside of it looks a lot like tentacles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me where in the gospel there's tentacles, bro. I mean,
Leviathan.
Oh, well,
Jinx.
Okay. Okay. All right. So Leviathan. What else?
But wasn't Leviathan a dinosaur?
I thought he
Not
was
necessarily
like a fish.
Dinosaurs are just birds, bro.
Dinosaurs are freaking
Dinosaurs are scary because they're crazy and they have feathers and they're colorful, but not because
just a kaiju. We don't know what kind. We don't know the details.
Yeah. Like honestly, your whole continent could wake up one day and just swim away, and that could be a Leviathan. We're not sure. Like
the behemoth and the.
Go ahead, Mark.
That circular pattern looked like the mouth of a squid. That's what I've always thought of when I hear Leviathan, but I think people have also depicted it as like a dragon type of thing.
Oh, really? This is at Yale too, by the way, Mark. This book is at Yale. They have the Dragon Balls there. I know they do.
Got all the cool stuff. With, like,
They have all the cool stuff. They have the Voynich at Yale, so it's like they're collecting all these talismans.
Yeah,
and
they have
relics
Skull and Bones at Yale.
But it's in the forbidden section, bro. It's like this where the woke kids won't read them, so it's okay.
Yeah, the amount of burner EDU emails that I've made just to access these university libraries, man. That's some crazy shit, dude. Like fucking Oxford's huge too. You got Yale and Oxford with like the most esoteric fucking library.
Look at that. What is that?
The dove.
That's crazy, bro. That's wild.
The dove returning.
I'd be terrified if I saw that in my vision. You think I'd want to be there if I saw that? If I was to morph into that painting, whatever it is, like, can you imagine? What kind
Maybe
of
that's a way to enter like the DMT realm and like interact in that.
Yeah, it might be more of a you thing,
just by looking at magic, like a magic eye thing that has some kind of information.
I get the feeling, as much as we're into really similar things, I feel like Juan and I are different people. You know what I mean?
I think we are. That's safe to say, right?
Like if you were free falling for 3 days with me, we would probably eventually, after like a few hours, we'd probably start playing I Spy and having a good time. But you probably just don't want to free fall. You know what I mean? Through infinite voids of darkness for days.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, that's the thing. And so I maybe am more of an optimist about it, I guess. Yeah. But I mean, looking at the archetypes is also supposed to be a good thing, right? Because every one of those pictures, you've got angels, protectors. Every single picture is coming with a protector, in the scene. And you're imagining the sun, or you're imagining God, or you're trying to contemplate nature from a way that you're looking at it from an internal perspective, looking at it like, I am nature, I am the city, I am the scene, I'm the girl that's being rescued or is being martyred, or I am the martyr, I think is a big one there.
So, what was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say. Somebody's talked about alchemy, and I was going to bring up Jung, but I forgot what I was going to say about him. Because he was also into... Anyways, continue. I'm sorry.
Well, I could rant for more. One of the things you were talking about when you talk about homunculus is...
Oh, now I know.
Okay, good.
Now I know. Kircher. Marcy Kircher. And Kircher, right, we were talking about this Ouroboros thing. Well, Kircher, he was into something called... Let me look it up. Is it paleogenesis? Where it's like from the ashes of something, you were able to grow the thing again. And essentially Kircher...
He comes up all the time now. It's weird.
Very interesting cat there, because he supposedly did this experiment. It was either him or Paracelsus, where they had this rose in a jar, and he would show this to people, and essentially he said that he was able to grow the rose over and over and over again in this jar. He had like a closed ecosystem, and it's this idea of, again, and use your imagination, right? The phoenix rising from the ashes is a sort of homage to this, but they believe that you could do this with anything else. So if you had the ashes of a person, you could, right, homunc territory, you could grow a homunculus or whatever it was that you were trying to do. And even H.P. Lovecraft wrote about this. Paracelsus talked about this. And I forgot who else was in line there, but it's a very interesting connection as to it's called paleogenesis. My freaking keyboard's not working right now.
It seems like it would be possible if you had like if the soil is rich enough with the right, minerals and elements, like that rainforest black soil, they find that they don't know how to recreate that. That's like the soil that's self-replenishing. It doesn't deplete. You guys know what I'm talking about? Like Joe Rogan talks about this all the time.
Amazon rainforest.
Yeah, the black soil they found. They're like, wow, like how they make this soil, and then you can make any area like sustainable, basically. And Joe Rogan just had a guest recently who's like a cattle rancher or something, and he makes his own soil sort of in that same vein. I don't know if it's as good or not, but he brought with him some soil. He's like, this is basically magical soil compared to like what we've got,
So do you know the more crazier aspect of that theory, of that the Amazon rainforest could have potentially been like this out of control greenhouse, essentially, that was I guess bioengineered completely. And like they're finding cities and all these different things in in the Amazon rainforest, but again, that just plays into like Atlantis, or I don't know.
I mean, corn was a pretty good example. I feel like anyone who was able to buy that corn just was like invented haphazardly.
Yes.
That blows my mind because this is nuts that this exists, and people just kind of like go, yeah, they must have been kind of advanced, but let's just sleep on it. I don't know. Corn's crazy.
It's a
But
conspiracy, bro.
the homunculus thing is scary because as you're talking, you're like, it's okay. Like, you know, you're actually saying be afraid of the stuff where you're making the, you know, whatever. And instead you're saying it's okay to do the mental work. I'm actually thinking it's backwards. The more you let these things into your mind, the more you become the homunculus. And so it's probably better that you make the homunculus into something else than yourself, right? Like you should be not the thing that is
Go back to that picture. Go back.
I will.
So it's interesting you say, right? The more you peer into the abyss, you know, the abyss will start to look back into you, sort of thing, right? Nietzsche, and we know what happened to him. You know, we know what happens to all these different occultists that are obsessed with crossing of the abyss, right? Like this Kenneth Grant talks about how this is where the magical lycanthrope idea comes from, where these occultists trying to cross these abysses, they lose their minds because they're trying to get into what they call a praetor human intelligence. Like they're trying to transgress their consciousness to a pre-human era, this larval state, right? And sometimes they lose control of that process and this dimension that they cross in through Da'ath and the tree of, right? You have the cliff off on the other side, and they lose control and they're tossed into the abyss and they lose their minds, right? So, and it's interesting, right? You bring up this picture because in the movie, he has the head, right? And the head's talking to him. Well, that reminds me of John the Baptist and how essentially and allegedly the Knights Templar had the head of John the Baptist, and if you had the head of a prophet, it would prophesize to you, right? And it's
What?
like,
Right.
yeah, there's an ancient Egyptian, I think they're called terraforms, I think is what they're called, and the idea was that if you had the head of a prophet, you could use it for divinatory purposes. And
God.
it's like you read about this sort of stuff and you go, oh, well, Skull and Bones was doing that with the skull of John the Baptist, and they were doing all these seances and everything. It's like, yeah, they were doing that. It's like, but how did they conduct the ceremony? And like you have the writings of like Burrows where he goes into detail, bro, of like they conduct a freaking ceremony with the head of, you know, this person in this book. So you're reading about this and you go, okay, this is coming from like an actual occult source where they're putting in these nuggets of this occult knowledge and they're essentially showing you what it would consist of, like, you know, how to prepare everything and how to set it up and then what you needed to do after you set it up. So it's like really interesting. But yeah, it just made me think of that when they're putting all these concepts in these movies. I'm thinking about like other stuff, and I'm thinking about like what's that movie, Starship Troopers with the bugs? I'm like, was that inspired by Burrows? Then you have the 2012 prophecy that was, some people trace the origins of that back to Burrows as well because he was studying Mayanology, the Mayans.
When was Burrows contemporary?
1970s, right? He died in 97.
Okay, so Heinlein came before him then.
Well, he was in the 40s too. William.
He was born in 1912, 1914?
Yeah.
What year was he born?
1914. Yeah.
1914.
He was
Specific
pretty.
question. He was what was the point again?
You asked like if he was a contemporary with Heinlein.
No, but why last? There's one of the you mentioned some concepts, and I was like, oh, one of those is from a Heinlein.
The Mayan prophecy, the 2012 prophecy?
No, it wasn't that one. It was something else you listed there. Shoot, I lost it. I bet.
Sorry, bro.
No, it's all good.
But there's
Maybe
two
someone in the
things.
chat remembers.
Two things I want to bring up. So like when you were mentioning about the how like the head of a prophet being prophesying whatever, and this concept isn't unique to Abrahamism either. Like I remember distinctly Norse paganism referencing this. It's called Mimir, which is what I pulled up in this private chat.
Oh.
There's that too, and also you're mentioning of how people grew stuff out of the ashes. So you have like all these civilizations that have grown near volcanoes that use ash for soil, and it's like so much more like effective than any other fertilizer in the world, like ash for some reason, right? Volcanic ash specifically.
Well, we got some super chats. I better just admit it. I'm sorry. I gotta say. Stoic Fitness. Hey fam, I'm introducing my homies Wayne and Mike to the show. What's up, Wayne and Mike? I hope you love Homunculus. And then Keenan gifted another 10 memberships, which is crazy. That's 10 more members to watch crazier stuff. That's also cool. So all right, and then
keep it
going.
crazy. Keep it crazy.
What were you saying?
The Mimir thing is really interesting because, all right, so the guy's beheaded body, right? And in Burrows' story, he talks about what they do with these beheaded bodies, and it was really eerily. It was because Cities of the Red Knight was written in 1972 or 1970, and that was around the time of the Dahmer murders. And we know that famous picture of the body that Dahmer had, right, the decapitated body in that arch of hysteria type of look. And it's like, we know Dahmer was doing some like occult stuff that he never finished. He was building an altar with like a whole bunch of different skulls, and he had like drawings of it. So it's like, did Burrows draw inspiration from Dahmer, or did Dahmer draw inspiration from Burrows? Because he would seem like the type to be reading Burrows, like
Yeah, more
super
likely.
sicko, you know. So
But
it's
then
like,
again, Burroughs was around military people, especially at that point, and so anything that could be happening in Germany at that time is possible. Yeah.
well, yeah, then you have that German connection with the also werewolf attacks like during this time too. So it's just really interesting because Burroughs was a guy who talked about that if you did something, so he murdered his wife, right? He murdered his wife. He got away with it. And he talked about how if you're able to write a story, so for those that read like Crowley's Moonchild, that's essentially a grimoire. He's talking about himself. You know, it's been proven that a lot of the characters in that are referencing like Mathers and all these different occultists, right? The White Lodge, Black Lodge, etc. And so when you're reading, he talks about that if you detail enough in a story, if you lay everything out, that you somehow again escape, you're able to escape that reality in which you brought forth, like which you wrote about. And it makes me think of like, right, a Parsons, where they were writing about a story, and what they wrote in that story that him and his little group, right, the Suicide Squad had written about, it all came true. Even one of the facts that like one of the guys got deported back to like China, and like he became like the nuclear missile guy for, I think it was Mao or whoever was in power at that time. Like they divinated that through storytelling. It's like that was like their thing. So I call it interdimensional literature, where it's like it's works of art, and maybe these dudes were charging it. You know what I'm saying? Like they were doing stuff to charge their writings and make it that much more, magical, I guess, because they were occultists and they were degenerates. So who knows what they were doing behind closed doors with their stories. And there's
Apparently
a
using
reason.
organ chambers sounds
And
like.
using organ chambers, shooting down those UFOs with the cloud, giving the UFOs orgasms.
Yeah. I mean, come on, that's interesting. That's all of it. That's the military connection and, the medical connection, all of it at once. That's pretty funny. Wilhelm
Yeah.
Reich.
Yeah.
Also, adding on to the whole monkey-like conversation, I always find it interesting that throughout like alchemical literature, or even up to the story of Frankenstein, that like all these beings that are supposedly like, in some form of homunculi are resurrected with lightning, the coronal discharge.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys want to know anything about that or stuff, or
Do you have any thoughts on the electricity and everything? I mean, because that's the thing. It seems like technology might be replacing lightning.
well, not
Obviously,
necessarily that. Like, I'm a huge proponent of the thunderbolt theory, whatever. Like the fact that like that life started with a thunderbolt, and that was the whole "let there be light" stuff kind of thing. So adding on to that, like the secret to life could be literally lightning.
Yeah. I've always felt that way. So does David Lynch. He believes that electricity carries consciousness.
Yeah, but if you
And,
got struck by lightning, you
well, a lot of people think that's how souls enter the physical realm or whatever. I mean,
Whoa.
I don't know. I don't think you can really,
You know,
prove that.
Florida has the highest lightning deaths. I think Florida is the lightning capital of the world.
Really?
The world.
Yeah. In the world, the globe. You like the globe or plane? Which one do you like? Flat plane or globe?
I'm ambivalent.
Nice. Yeah. You swing both ways, doesn't matter.
I know when I'm in over my head. I'm just like, I was just saying in the chat, somebody said the Earth's like a pancake, and I said waffle Earth.
Hey, it's a
Let's go to
waffle
war.
Earth.
I say it's a
whatever.
waffle war.
Earth.
I
It's
declare
a
war.
homunc Earth.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I love
syrup
that-
off my waffle Earth.
I love that idea, like Scientology and
Pancake tart.
this spirit thing connected to volcanoes and lightning and everything.
Well,
like, that is fun.
It's interesting that you brought up volcanoes, right? Because we have Fulcanelli, who, if you read the Mysteries of the Great Cross of Henday, where they talk about Jay Widener and Vincent Bridges, they decipher this cross that supposedly Fulcanelli was talking about, and it pinpoints this cave system over in Peru somewhere. I forgot where at in Peru, but essentially like the idea of there being, you know, it's next to a volcano somewhere over there, and these caverns that form from these volcanoes, you know, the crystals and everything in that volcano, right? Fulcanelli, like little volcano, he talks about how there could essentially be portals because volcanoes draw in like lightning, right? So whenever we have like a volcano erupting, there's lightning. So they're hinting essentially at, in these caverns, these maybe lava tubes, whatever they are, there are portals to other realms essentially that you're able to go in there. And it's because there's only certain crystals found within these volcanoes that aren't found anywhere else, because again, the idea of alchemy is the worship of fire.
It's,
right, so you have
lightning sounds like a rip. It sounds like the sky is being torn, right? So like you know, that would be a good way to get in, you know, to come through the veil or something like that. Just, you know,
I'm not trying to find out, but
there's so much like esoteric connection with lightning and like plasma. It's just, like we had the plasma event, the Phoenix event stuff, and like it's all about the whole thing about the recess.
Ball lightning's a pretty crazy one. It's like,
yeah,
that lightning.
Crowley talked about ball lightning too, and it being a paranormal phenomenon. Yeah. And how
also like
are able to travel like that.
What was it, like the I forget what it was called, where Alexander Graham Bell made like a device that you can communicate with light, essentially. Fuck.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
so like light can carry electromagnetic frequency, sound, all sorts of things. So like consciousness is not it's not out of the question.
Photophone?
Yeah, photophone. Yes.
Yeah. The photophone was invented first, 1880. Diagram.
And stuff like this, which is what makes me believe that like we are a cargo cult that inherited this technology, because the timeline and progression, technological development, whether it's all across the late 1700s, the 1800s as well.
They probably just didn't have a good business plan for that. It's funny what gets chosen and what becomes ubiquitous and what you just never hear of again.
I don't know. I think the photophone was one that it's interesting. Like they had a bunch of really great technology, and then they used the Morse code telegraph instead. And I think for one reason, it's like really durable. But for the other reason, it's like not everyone had access, or they didn't want everyone to have access to all of this technology. So we think like, oh, technology progressed really far, but that's not exactly true. It's just it got into more hands. Like they had stuff like this, obviously, before they decided what they would make more mainstream.
But the thing is, the sequence of development doesn't make sense to me. The timeline, you go from something really advanced to something
sometimes
much lower.
It just doesn't. Like the cigarette lighter way predates matches.
Well,
have you guys ever heard of thoughtography?
What's it called?
Because what you just brought up, Gunwoo, reminds me of thoughtography. This photo phone. There's people who
that can create photos through their telekinesis, whatever. I've heard of this from Mind Unveiled.
Well, they also use like metal and things, right?
Oh, shout out to Mind Unveiled.
Yeah.
Like heavy metal.
Shout out.
But you have like all these Monroe Institute type people back in, especially in the Cold War, that was able to not only project their consciousness in remote view, but also project their consciousness on physical objects, creating images. And this stuff is declassified; it's all real. But the fact that like it's like, you know, this is so considered so schizophrenic or supernatural that like it's not to the average lay person. This is so like.
If you type in If you type in Ted Seros, there's some really good ones that this guy claims he makes with his mind. It's Serios. Yeah, there he is. He makes all kinds of
fuck raiding Area 51. We need to get into the Monroe Institute and see what the fuck they're up to.
Mark, was it you who I was talking to? I don't know if it was you or
everything you said tonight came from our conversations on the Volcanic. But I love it. I'm so proud of you. I'm like, geez, everything we talk about, Juan just digests it, and he's just like, boom, 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 boom.
I don't know if it was you that told me that when power lines were erected, right, and put in these cities, a lot of haunted places stopped having hauntings. Who was I talking to?
Yeah, and also ghosts are afraid of photographs.
Yeah.
Same thing with Native Americans. Native Americans were really against getting their picture taken.
Look at these Burning Man Baphomet looking things right here.
Like what Seth just said, with electricity being inherent to consciousness. So you put this frequency out that's inherently not harmonic, and it's like polluting an area, right? The animals, they don't want to be there. because they can sense the pollution. I think the same thing is true with these elementals and all these other lesser beings and
Some
higher
animals, cats love radiation like that, EMF and ELF radiation. They'll go cuddle up right on top of a nuclear reactor if they can.
Interesting.
Well, and I think that's just proving that there's this whole hidden realm of frequencies and this spectrum of light, sound, and whatever else.
Right.
You know, and I think
They
that's
say
where
the Egyptians used cats to find ley lines and stuff like that. Like cats just go to those places and lay down and roll around and stuff.
Well, according to my neighbor, who I just met today, as I was walking out of my building today, a woman introduced herself and said, "Can I tell you about my haunted apartment?" And I'm like,
Very
"Yeah,
good.
sure." So apparently, Abraham Lincoln, or someone who looks like Abraham Lincoln, has been looking through her window, and she's on the second floor. She's on the second floor, so I don't know. I'm gonna have to get into some photo phone thoughtography. Maybe I can get a picture of this Abe Lincoln
I mean,
lookalike.
there's like a lot of people who wore top hats in New England in the 1820s, right? So you can imagine
Good
until
stylish.
yeah, he's actually kind of retro. That came to Illinois by 1860s, and he's still wearing it because he wants to stick out. Like so, 1820s to 1860s, and maybe there's a resurgence, but I doubt it. In New England, probably it's like 1820s to 1860s. You'll find somebody with a top hat like that whole time. But I don't know. I mean, I like the idea of energy that's holding on to places. I like the idea of Chernobyl. You know, what people say there's that ghost show.
That gets into the whole idea of archaeoacoustics, or you know, this idea
Freaking
that
volcanoes, yeah.
and different. You know, it's kind of like what we
Is
were
Pompeii
talking.
haunted? Does anyone do a Pompeii haunted thing? We should do that. That should be a show.
Wait, what are you talking about? Chernobyl? Is Chernobyl haunted?
There's a great episode of like the Ghost Hunter show where they go to Chernobyl, and I don't do ghosts. It's not like my thing, you know.
Ghosts are fake and gay. I agree.
Well, I'm more of like, yeah, it's a little bit like I like movies like Casper, you know. I don't know, like I like Hegel's Geist. I liked this one because it was like, check this out. Hear me out. Let me hear you out.
Believe what the ghost hunters are putting together, bro.
I love some ghost
readers and their crazy tube devices.
I love that. No, that's great. That's all cool. This is what I'm trying to say. I'm saying that. Like I was like, okay, here first off, they send a group of people that aren't even your regular ghost hunters because the regular guys don't want to go to Chernobyl because they're afraid they'll become infertile or mutants, you know? So that's already a good sign. These people are dedicated, all right? Then they get there and yeah, they have all that equipment and that's cool, but you don't even need it because what ends up happening is they go into like some weird dark corner, a freaking desk flies across the room, they hear a kid scream in Russian, "Stop!" And then like their energy of their batteries just drains instantly. Like you're in a horror movie and you're like, okay, vibe, I get it. Like if there was a place where something was trapped, like I could see like radiation holding on to.
Do you know you know where the biggest deposit of uranium is in the United States or in North America? Isn't it like under somewhere?
Better be Connecticut.
Nevada?
It's somewhere like that in Nevada or
Utah or something. Okay, well, yeah.
West. But it's a place that historically the Native Americans avoided because
I've always heard about this. California and Nevada, they just won't fuck with that area. But on top of that, like
the radioactive waste right there.
And not only that, like so you know, human beings, the aura, whatever field, we emanate radiation too, like biophotons, is all that stuff. So like I'm under the belief, like I do believe in ghosts, but not the way that the mainstream believes.
Not in the gay way,
are. Right? But
maybe our way's gayer.
I'm under the impression. I'm under the impression that like if you experience such a severe traumatic event, that like a part of your like, I don't know, it's your energy field or like your just like a metaphysical consciousness type thing stays behind, right? You hear this from like stories from veterans all the time. Like I have to deal with the VA constantly, so like you always hear about like people that come back from war, like always telling you like I feel like a part of me has stayed back in Afghanistan, right? And like you see this phenomenon with ghosts where people have died traumatically or through like rape or whatever, and like they end up haunting the place or so. Like so, yeah, I feel like there's something to this, right? That like a traumatic event will like keep your soul or something like that in this cycle of samsara of the location that you experienced the traumatic event.
I think I love what you're adding to this, and I think Paradox Basin is where what I'm talking about is, but I could be wrong. But look at that name, Paradox Basin. I wonder what goes on there.
Hmm.
Mm.
And also, like Area 51 is also in Nevada as well.
This is pretty good. Yeah, like the spread out here too, like something shattered. I like that. Like this idea that
Ooh. Nice. Isn't that where, like, is it near Skinwalker? It's kind of near Skinwalker, right? Like where kind of, maybe a little bit. Because they say there's only certain minerals found in the soil, the dirt there, and maybe that could account for,
this is going to be Casper the Ghost. It's going to be like our version of Ghost is gayer and more Catholic. That's what you get. Basically, this is Casper in seminary school.
Yeah.
Oh, it happened finally.
Skinwalker Ranch is in Utah.
Casper the
Casper
Ghost.
That's lit. That's kind of lit. I don't know why.
It's the Holy Ghost. It's the Holy Ghost, bro.
I get it.
God.
It's the
Finally
Holy
makes
Ghost.
sense. That's the only time it's made sense.
Lord, forgive us for this heresy.
This needs to be like a t-shirt, bro.
Dude, Holy Ghost. Yeah, it happened so fast. You saw it here first. I don't know. I mean, all right, but the homunculus thing with John Dee is also interesting because John Dee was all about creating and manifesting. And someone asked me the other night if, like, there've been enough movies about John Dee. First off, you probably have a better answer for that. But I was just going to say any story about Rumpelstiltskin, almost every Rumpelstiltskin story feels like it's about turning straw into gold. It's kind of like a John Dee kind of thing. But what do you think about all that?
I mean, with Mark's permission, I can talk about John Dee because I know how he feels about it.
No, Juan. I was complimenting you. I'm like, all the things we've talked about on Volcanic Fridays are like just blooming in your garden mind.
It's true though. Like if we ever talk about something, I think what he means by that, because you guys are terrible at complimenting each other. But I'll be like talking to Juan, and by the time I've talked to him a few days later, he's read the book I just mentioned or watched the movie, and like, so it's really great because like he's there and is processing the hot potato, which is based.
It takes a few days. Like it takes me a few. I'll read something and I'll read it in chunks, and then I'll sit on it, let it marinate in the alchemical vessel, and then I'll when I go on shows, that's when I bring in, I connect it to like, oh, this. But John Dee is interesting because there isn't any connections as far as like the homunculus to John Dee, although he was, I guess, creating other types of homunculi, which were spiritual creatures, because the interesting part of John Dee and Edward Kelly was that they were, and what I'm doing is I'm working on this presentation where I'm going to take the descriptions that John Dee and Edward Kelly had with these entities that they were interacting with, and I want to put it in the AI to see what I'm able to extract, to really put like a picture as to what they were interacting with, because a lot of these descriptions that they're giving is very geometric in nature. So it's making me think of like angels and angles, right? Like, so like this idea of in this other realm that they were scrying into, that they were peering into, right? These entities, are they geometric in nature? Like there's something about the grid. And this is why I believe that. So we were talking about pineal glands earlier. And there's this story that I stumbled across with, well, shout out to Paranoid American. He's the one that found it. And it's about René Descartes. Now it's interesting because it's a story where Descartes figures out how to project his consciousness out of his body. And like this ties into like a whole bunch of other things. Like this ties into like Leibniz and how he was obsessed with alchemy. He was collecting stories of like transmutations. And then he came up with monadology, which is essentially encapsulating God into a substance or like a bottle or like a thing that's like you can extract power from, which homunculus is essentially that. You're trying to extract godlike powers from this little alchemical man. So you're trying to, it'll divinate for you. It'll, it could be your little buddy. It'll do chores for you, but essentially it's a magical being because it comes from the art, right? The royal art, which is alchemy, which is, the great work. And so you have John Dee, who was also trying to transmute base metals into gold with Edward Kelly. Edward Kelly went on to serve in Rudolph II's, right? He interacted with Kircher, Rudolph II's court, like all these other guys, because Edward Kelly also was able to get he had the Voynich at one point. And the way that he was able to find the Voynich manuscript was through a spiritual creature, which he was able to summon that led him to this treasure. Another part of the lore for the homunculus is that they lead you to treasures. They reveal to you the hidden things. So it's like this, it's like the utility knife of the occult, I guess. Like it'll do everything and some. And like on top of that, it's like it's probably cute, right? Because like a little man in a vessel, whatever. So there's that aspect to it, right? It's like the esoteric Tamagotchi.
Who's the little wizard in He-Man?
Damn, how do I
Orko.
find treasure?
Yeah,
Do I
it's
just,
probably like
nut in a
Orko.
petri dish?
Orko's probably a homunculus,
Juan
right?
has a little one of those guys crawling around in that
I ain't heard no other explanations for what he is. So
I'm pretty sure he's a homunculus. That's what I was under the impression of. But I
Look
like
him
a
up.
little magic guy is what he is.
He's a little magic guy to help out with the kingdom. I'm
Did
pretty
you ever
sure
have the
he's-
toy and try to like peel the hat off and see what's under there? I mean, like knowing full well that you're just ruining your toy, and why would they even put a secret?
Gosh, I hope
So-
you didn't do that.
They were interacting with these
Oh wait,
entities.
also I gotta say like Tawhid, so like they were studying Arabic a lot, and so they had access to like Arabic literature. So they didn't do the Trinity; they did a monad idea of the Tawhid. So the Sufic understanding of physics and the universe was really becoming important. Again, also Kabbalah, like the fact that they're like, wow, words letters have values and numbers. That blew their minds.
Well, it's funny you bring that finger up because I think it's in one of Kubrick's movies, the one with the horror one with the blood. What's the name of that movie? Where he has the Apollo shirt. In that story, in that movie, the little boy has a homunculus in his finger. The little boy. That right there, the little boy. Yeah. He has a homunculus.
That sandwich doesn't count as a homunculus, does it?
In the finger, bro.
It's in his finger.
In his finger, bro.
Oh, okay.
He's talking to a little homunculus in his finger.
Yeah. That's fair. That's
So
fair.
he just
So-
bust a nut in his finger or something?
Well, again, that's not the only way to create a homunculus. Okay, a homunculus
really?
can also be like a mental projection of the magician, and it lives off of like it's like an egregore of the.
But wouldn't that be a tulpa?
Again, thought form, tulpa, collective egregore, et cetera, whatever you want it to be. So essentially, it's the same sort of technology. There's various ways to skin a cat. There's various ways to create a homunculus. These grimoires show you how to create homunculus from various animal parts. You have to do certain things.
Is
but
the hand in Vampire Hunter D? Is that a homunculus?
Vampire Hunter D.
The guy's got a hungry mouth on his hand that has to. Like,
Man, the
like,
fact that they're
constantly
telling you like
eat
there's
it.
more ways than one to skin a cat means like they want to prepare you for so much more in this world, right? Isn't that what
Guys,
that
if you
means?
guys haven't watched Vampire Hunter D, you guys would. It's an
I
old
think
school anime.
is that an anime?
It's an old anime.
I think I
my
might
old
have.
ass.
No, I haven't.
But the
seen
guy's
it.
got a talking hand
Oh,
that talks
yeah.
to him and tells him what to
Right.
do, and it needs fed
Wow.
all the time. And I see like multiple people a day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a
so
good show.
it makes me think of the Addams Family with their little hand. But the idea of the homunculus evolved because you have Crowley, right, with Moonchild, where and then this gets into like MK Ultra, where you have Fritz Springmeier and all these guys, where it's like it's not so much an alchemical homunculus. It's more of like the embodiment of an elemental entity or like a demonic entity or something that is in the fetus, in the person. And I think if anything, like 2 months ago, they were talking about making chimeras in labs in China and making entities. So if there's anything about like, if there's homunculus running around, I think they would be like these, the homunculus can be as simple as aligning someone's birthday and some royal family to be certain time, certain day, and they C-section them out to make sure that they have this astrological alignment because they are the heir to the, what I'm saying? Like that could be as simple as the homunculus can get. Because Crowley wrote like his whole manual and Parsons took it over and then did his own manual on it, which, became the.
So
Babylon
is
Workbench.
Greta Thunberg a homunculus?
Possibly.
Or like,
She
what
looks
about
like
the
one.
idea?
question,
What
what
about
is
the
it?
idea of body leaping, like being John Malkovich? Do you think that that's a thing that people
I
are
think-
leaping into bloodlines? Like at a certain point, someone's
Absolutely.
right.
What do you think you're doing when you're reading a novel? You're jumping into the writer's mind, or he's.
I mean,
on
not only
your
that,
mind when
we
you're
did
reading it.
discuss in a previous live stream, Andreas, about like how the Tibetan sects of Buddhism are being paid to like divert souls into like
True.
yeah.
Yes, I've heard about that. And Burrows talks about a similar concept where, there's whole cults of this thing that they're doing this thing. Again, he's writing about real stuff, except it's in a story. And he is trying to obliterate your consciousness as you're reading the story, because you can't keep up, bro. He's like switching timelines in the story without telling you. It's like 5 different stories in one. So you by the end of the book, I was like, I'm just gonna finish it because I have zero idea of what's going on.
I've read a few books like that, man. Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, Eternal Jest.
Even I'm a big fan of that kind of thing. I love like
keep reading, get to the end.
Ezra Pound though. Like, hey, do you read like Ezra Pound? Ezra Pound, like the greatest poet, right? I mean, or maybe William Carlos Williams because it's shorter, but still, the idea of things that are just feeling based, things that are basically, I think a great Turing test is if you can get emotional responses out of Ezra Pound work, because it's hard to do for a machine to infer what he's talking about because you need to have lived in so many ways. But sorry, you were going to say about Moonchild and Crowley, which is totally about this, right?
So yeah, Moonchild is essentially his grimoire on how to create this entity, right? And it, you know, I don't want to spoil it, but it changes the woman that's the vessel.
You don't want to spoil Aleister Crowley's Moonchild from 1920.
What? Hey, just read it. So another aspect of this is like the superhero aspect of where they're trying to create Superman, right? Superman, right? Sperm is in the word, so they're like occulting these different aspects within these words. And he talks about Superman. The Ubermensch is also a part of this, like this Overman,
which is probably Alanis Morissette's most underrated song from like before she did Jagged Pill. And Superman, it's amazing.
Let the man speak.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. But this idea of like Captain America and all these comic books, right? These hyper sigils is what they are. And having these concepts essentially go back to this idea of a homunculus where you're able to, right, have a golem. A golem is a sort of like cybernetic AI type of thing. It's more of like a robotic. It's already fully grown. It's made from clay. It's not really blood and bones. Like, that's where the homunculus and the golem, differ in each other. But this concept of making a superhuman essentially is what, and Parsons actually believed that he was saving the universe from being destroyed by bringing in the Scarlet Woman, like this elemental that was Marjorie Cameron. Like, he believed that there needed to be a balance in the universe because there was already a force in it and it was too masculine. Again, they were trying to like bring in like this feminine aspect to reality, and I guess you could say that they succeeded because right after this was like the hippie movement, love, sex, drugs, like all this sort of thing. So they kind of transmuted a whole era of reality itself, which is like what they've always been trying to do. They're trying to suck in, like, alchemically destroy this reality and create a new one. And it just resonated when what you said today on Mark's show, where it was like AI is simultaneously destroying our reality while recreating it. So it's almost like this Ouroboros type of thing where it's like this, endless cycle. But yeah, they're using this. So the homunculus is a technology, essentially, is what it is. And maybe that's how we have, there's different versions of it. Like maybe Lamb, you had Greer talking about how these alien entities, the ones that are abducting and taking people, are government made. And then the whole like cattle mutilation, where is their blood going? Why are their bones being broken? Like if they were dropped from like a high altitude, it's like, what are they doing with these cow organs that are missing? Like, are they making homunculi in some sort of like a lab somewhere, right, for these Nephilim entities or whatever you want to call it, right? And if you look at the Avatar movie, the Avatar homunculus, like they're like Mewtwo. They're grown in these amniotic like wombs, these matrices. Like Neo is a homunculus. He was grown in an artificial womb. Like these concepts have been around. Like the freaking the clone troopers, like those are homunculi. Like they were all bred for one thing. So this has been around for like quite some time, but there's multiple ways of skinning the cat or multiple ways of creating your homunculus, so and rant.
Sam's not feeling well, unfortunately. He's a rare puppet condition.
Oh man, I was looking forward to that.
But we're gonna have to do it again soon, and I'll make sure that you can be around Juan for another.
Is Sam a homunculus?
These are the kinds of. So the thing is, like, ping trip comes from a culture. I think a lot of people do, where they're always trying to constantly expose puppets, you know what I mean? And I just feel like, you know, it is okay to like be a puppet in this world. You know, you can be your own puppet and hold your own strings. And so I appreciate Sam because he's asking the real questions. And I think, but it's sad because like a puppet, these puppet diseases, but it's okay because I feel like puppet medicine's gone along a long way. It's gone a lot pretty far in the last 20 years. So hopefully Sam will be okay, but we should probably put together a GoFundMe for Puppet Sam's sickness. So let's wish him well. But yeah, I don't know. I think he might be a homunculus. It could be.
Get better, Sam.
That's a question I have. Do you
Okay,
think
get
that?
well soon.
Do you think psychologically, like we're producing, like is some like schizophrenia or some part of your mind or some new personality? Is that like, to me, it sounds like we're making homunculus more and more philosophical, and at the same time, we're trying to ignore how material forms are showing. There's more and more material homunculus, and especially if you start to accept mechanical automata. And Da Vinci first described his automata as homunculus. So it seems like anything material, like even your phone, all of a sudden becomes.
Do animals do this too? Like when dogs like find like a favorite stick or like a favorite whatever it is, you know,
Right.
they like weird.
Does that happen? Yeah. Can a dog put a soul into a stick, or is that something humans do?
What is a soul? What is consciousness? Like we don't know, and like that's
Yeah.
like one of the ethics.
Do we not know? Like, look at the Japanese. Like, they know. Like, I know. Like,
don't know,
if you know a lady, like, if they take the paper and like they know, like, this lady takes the bottom piece of paper, and when they put new paper in the printer, she makes sure that that bottom piece of paper goes to the bottom, so it gets to get used because its meaning in life and purpose is to be used piece of paper.
Right,
Like
yeah.
everything, it's material form around energy. Energy, therefore, is this uniting force. So it's that thing that people like to call the breath of God or the spirit or soul or consciousness or all that stuff. But it seems like we know that we're all like at some point or another you can take everything and break it apart and put it back together. You can't necessarily do that very well, but nature can. So
The Japanese have an expression called chanto, which means to do it right. You know what I mean? So they're basically more in connection with like the actual laws of nature and physics and stuff
Yeah,
like
like
that. Just
feng
correct
shui.
behavior. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
but there's a lot of kids like
geomancy.
that now who watch maybe not kids. Like there's a lot of people our age who watched Star Wars before it changed. That was about the Force, and the
Thor
Force
was gay. Yeah.
Yeah. They put a chick in it and made it lame. I know.
Yeah,
But-
no, definitely. Like I think that and it's weird because I think Mind Unveiled is partially to blame here because when we were putting together that video that took like 6 months to make. Like I always told him, like, dude, you're like opening up a can of worms. Like you're gonna put this out, and I think it's been put more into like this esoteric realm of things
Right.
and into the limelight because of that video. And it's got almost like 400,000 views. So it's like a lot of people have
Sure.
seen it, and it's 10 hours long. So that just comes to show you how much information there is out there and how many dots you can connect when it comes to this phenomenon, essentially is what it is, that has been, I think it's going to continue. And I think that maybe they are, right, it's like the 100 monkey theory, where it's like, well, maybe it was 100 homunculus theory, like everyone came on board and now it's like showing up everywhere. And there's even like movies about this now. And the really eerie part about it is like that they're talking about this in like an actual sense. Like, we created these entities, and it's like, are they gonna have a social security number? Are they gonna have a soul? Like when you create an entity from without a father and a mother, will that be what is that? Like
That's that
like,
movie, Short Circuit 2. Do you ever watch Number Johnny 5 and he becomes a citizen?
Two?
Yeah, the
Whoa.
sequel. Oh, the sequels.
I must have seen it at least once,
Oh,
but I just can't remember.
I argue almost better in some ways. I
Wow.
think I don't know. As a kid, I thought I liked it better than the first one because it's a greater kids movie.
You're a weird judge of movies, I gotta tell
Yeah,
you.
that's the thing. The first one's really important, but the second one's totally different.
Wow, okay, I gotta watch it.
Andreas, I love how you segue. We'd be having like the most profound esoteric conversation. Hey, have you seen this one fucking movie?
Have you not
Oh, it is
seen
pretty
Short Circuit
profound.
2? It's about a homunculus, like
how
Number Johnny
esoteric
5.
is that?
Yeah, Number Johnny 5's got 500 megabytes of memory, and he's going around New
Nice.
York City, and he's got he joins a gang.
Struck by lightning, that's how he comes to life.
Wait,
Yeah.
is he a blood?
Yeah, he's a blood. He's literally a blood.
He's also a gangster, bro.
Those locos kick your face. Those locos
like-
kick your ass into outer space. Like that, he literally says that. That's something that the robot literally says
my God.
in this
It's
movie.
like
He steals a bunch of
ChatGPT.
radios.
ChatGPT is like this too. It's
Yeah,
like
this is-
you know,
I think I
a
do
monk.
remember this. That
It's
looks
Pretty
amazing.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
It's
is
a mid-movie.
ChatGPT realized.
ChatGPT hit by lightning, because that's a big thing. Is he's hit by lightning, and so all
That's
of
the
a sudden,
thing too. Yeah, the lightning part.
and then the CIA is after him, and he's with this fake Indian guy who's the hacker, the evil hacker, Mr. the Plague from the movie Hackers. But in this movie, he's pretending to be an Indian guy who's like Johnny number 5. And it's just the last movie I feel like they ever let anyone do, besides Simpsons. Where they let someone have like a fake accent like that. But no, it's important because he, from the first movie, like he's got a soul now and he's wandering around, he's learning about himself, he's reading Pinocchio, he's learning about other homunculus, and eventually he's going to become a citizen. Like that's his whole goal, right? Like he wants to be a person, and personhood's really important, right? And he keeps learning about personhood and how he's different, but how he's similar and wanting that. I think that is like the big argument in almost any dystopic
Well, that's
sci-fi.
Goethe, bro. That's Goethe and Faust, where the homunculus wants to be a real human. Like he wants to be human.
The Pinocchio story.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
which is essentially what these. Maybe that's why like demons or entities like they want to possess people and inhabit people because they want to experience what that is. And I did this episode on elementals where the elementals want to marry man or women, whatever. Maybe they're bi, who knows? But
the story of the Nephilim mating with
Yes.
humans. Yeah, you have this time and time again reoccurring theme across the board of either possession or the angels being jealous, even wanting to become a human.
Mm-hmm. And that's to obtain a soul. So they want to marry humans to obtain a soul. And again, it could be a machine, could be not. And it's like back to John Dee and Edward Kelly. I believe that they were given blueprints of like a sort of a computer, essentially, like like a medieval computer, I guess you could say, where they were able to interact with these entities on the other side. And it's like if you have the perfect computer, the perfect electronical thing, like the perfect piece of technology, will that ever attract a soul? Like will that ever attract something from
I
inhabiting
conceptualize that totally differently. I guess in the same way I don't really believe in an atom, I don't really believe in a soul, because when a thing appears to register itself, you know what I mean? If a thing is reporting to you that it's experiencing something and you're not the one who programmed it, or you don't have direct access to that, I mean, if you can be convinced that a thing is reporting to you, it has feelings and it's alive.
Are we forgetting?
I mean, if it's something like Johnny Five, you know what I mean, or Kermit the Frog. If a Kermit the Frog Muppet just started walking around and talking on its own, you know what I mean? It would be a big mistake to like publicly execute it or just throw it in the trash or something. People wouldn't like that.
It was like small soldiers, and
there'd be like a revolution. People would be like, protect it,
Small soldiers with the chips in them. But yeah, wait,
are we forgetting the ultimate team of homunculus superheroes, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
So are they homunculus? Because they're just mutant turtles.
They're chimeras.
But
I'm more so convinced they're chimeras.
I guess. Well, if they are homunculuses, then Splinter made them. Then
Splinter's a mutant human that became rat-like, but the turtles learned they had the potential to learn, and so it's just like the more facility they had
and behavior and everything is from Splinter.
Another segue, Electric Dreams, right, which is the movie about like the computer that gets struck by lightning and has champagne and over processes, and it becomes self-aware and it falls in love, right? Look at it, look at it grabbing that girl right there.
Are these movies meant to be like the fairy tales for the future AI creatures that are going to like learn what?
God, I hope so, because they're just
what a great thought.
These are the humans that they're gonna get to keep. Yeah, probably.
Everything was always conceptualized in the '80s. We're just now seeing it being realized now, like just like the F-35 project.
1983 broke reality. That's what Chris Knowles and I talked about on a recent podcast I did. It's got a pretty compelling case for why that is.
What's his reason? Let me also say there's a super chat from Stefan. First gen photophone was non-electric and used sun. Yes, it was just light vibration. But yeah, what were you going to say about Chris Knowles thing?
1983 is exactly 40 years ago, and that's significant. But why 1983 specifically is important is because next to all the music and movies that came out that were very predictive, let's say, but also very influential in many ways too, the cell phone, the personal computer, the internet, all these things rolled out in 1983. So, I mean, if that didn't change our reality in the last 40 years, I don't know what did more than that. But yeah, he lays it all out in his blog post, and we went, deep
Yeah, a
into
lot
it.
of things were available. Yeah, this is the new world of tech.
It's so insane to me how much George Orwell got right. And he wrote this book in 1949, and somehow 1983 missed
He wrote it
the
in
mark
40
by a year.
It came out in 48.
48.
Oh,
Yeah.
48, gotcha.
You're fake news, bro. Sorry.
Pretty base though, right? Pretty
But
base.
yeah, missed the
Steve
mark by
Wozniak.
one
There's a
year.
prequel to 1984 called Coming Up for Air.
Yeah, it's like Passion of the Christ too. I heard about that one too, bro.
Yeah, it's kind of like before the collapse. So it's kind of interesting to read that one too.
Dude, I mean, 1983
Steve
is also,
Wozniak was a Mason?
of course, he's still alive, you know.
Fucking
Yeah,
hell.
you probably have to be one just to talk to him, which is kind of sad because I really want to talk to
I
him
hope
about
people
it.
really do read 1984 because it's a psychedelic experience just reading that quality of writing. It's a terrifying book that changes you forever.
You should
Like,
read it
You have
in
to
the
read it.
rain.
You can't just get a synopsis and oh, I know what it's about.
You'll never look at coffee the same ever again once you read that book.
Same-
or chocolate.
Same with Naked Lunch though, for other reasons.
Or
be
just going
careful.
to the woods, being
Anyone
in
puts
nature.
bug powder in your coffee. The
building
Crystal
place.
Radio, you brought this up, Gunwoo. What's up?
Oh yeah. It's
I
just
used to
like
make
on
these.
the topic of photophone and 1800s technology. When the one super chat mentioned that the photophone used the sun, this popped in my head of wireless free energy technology. People just put a quartz crystal inside a radio and somehow picked up EMF signals perfectly clear, so clear. This is one of the first instances of the wireless phone, and the fact that they use the crystal is insane to me.
Wow.
Somebody said bulletproof Masonic vest. That's awesome.
Very practical. That much metal on it. Yeah, I mean, the crystal radios are really interesting. It just seems like anyone from that time is going to have a different understanding because you're coming probably from a superstitious period already, so it's easy to accept. Okay, well, here's just the truth about it. It's science. This is what the new religion is. I just feel like we've stepped away from that so far that people don't see.
I've always due to the way things are now. I was under the presumption that this whole new age spiritualism, healing crystal stuff was all bullshit. But then going back to stuff like this, wow, there's something to this, man.
So to bring this to Burrows again,
Mhm.
Burrows talks about the wishing machine. Have you ever heard about that, Xirtus?
The wishing machine. I can't think of it. No.
So he did this lecture because Burrows was also talking to the guy that made the dream machine too, the one with, with the strobe, the light. Forgot his name,
Yeah.
Jensen or something like that. And
Yeah.
he did this lecture where he talks about this friend of his that gave him the and I found the book too. He gives you the blueprints on how to create this wish machine, and essentially is what it is. Like he got a copper plate and some all this other stuff, but essentially what he was trying to get at was is consciousness, is this metaphysical thing, can it affect reality? We're talking about the nature of reality today and consciousness, the soul, all these different things. And he's like, this machine kind of sort of I guess concentrates your consciousness or something, right? And amplifies it and is able to
concentrates your consciousness constantly.
Yeah, again, lack of a better term, and he was able to manifest things. So he's talking in this I think it was 1970 lecture, and he's talking about how he used this machine. He's like, listen, don't do anything stupid like wish for more money, go about it a certain type of way. He brings up the story of the monkey's paw or whatever it is, where it's be careful what you wish for. But this actual thing, and he's almost kind of sort of predicting cell phones. He's like, well, if somebody could patent this, make it smaller, like a little machine, and we could call it a death machine, and everyone can have one. It's well, and that's kind of what a cell phone is like. It's this little death machine that everyone carries around their pocket. It makes you feel like shit, when you read bad comments on the Xirtus YouTube channel of how you sounded like a schizo, that night of that live stream. That doesn't make you feel good. You know what I'm saying? So it's it already makes you feel bad about yourself, and
it's not its fault though. You know what I mean? It's the content of social media and the people who are designing the phones to be in the worst radiation bandwidths and then put them right in your pocket.
Yeah.
It could be totally safe and
It could be the
a
Holy
multitude
Ghost.
of ways.
Exactly.
Think about a movie like Videodrome, for instance, and how it showed this world of violence and things being streamed over the television. On certain people's algorithms, you get nothing but fight videos, death videos, car crashes, and all kinds of cop interactions, all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, that's what Videodrome bringing it back to 1983, predicted it. Now everybody has that in the
Yeah, it's like Clockwork
Yeah.
Orange. You do it to
I have
yourself.
a-
You
I
take
have
your
a
own
hypo-
eyes open and stare at it.
I have a hypothesis that like my algorithm is bad on purpose because they want me to make more content or something. They're just like, no, don't watch anything. There's nothing to watch. Go back to sleep.
But
You're
adding
great,
on to that,
Xirtus.
if you wanted to go, if you want to step into the schizo realm, the idea of that, like, circuit boards or demonic sigils, we've all heard this, but time and time again throughout ancient literature, we have mentions of demons manipulating crystals or whatever through piezo, like anything that was capable of piezoelectricity, the demons seems to be capable of manipulating. So since cell phones are silicone based, it's not out of the question.
So no crystal butt plugs. Yo, check out this voice thing that I got from the AI. Check it out. Check it out.
Space is fake and gay.
Yo, space is fake again. All right. All right. So yeah, no, I agree with you, and that's the thing with John Dee. They were given these blueprints. They were given this furniture that they had to follow these grid patterns. And again, back to Rene Descartes, where he kind of sort of came up with this manifestation, right? The Cartesian coordinate system, where you add one more axis, now you have 3-dimensional space, and how that's used in all like CAD CAM stuff, and then how Leibniz was obsessed with Descartes' like secret notebook. And a guy who also was obsessed with, again, transmutations, alchemy, monadology, all these everything. So I believe that Descartes had figured out through a series of dreams the idea of how to, like, quite literally manifest reality real time in some sort of way. And I think that the Cartesian coordinate system was part of like that magical system that was similar to what John Dee and Edward Kelly were interacting with. But obviously, right, Christina of Sweden made Descartes wake up too early, and that gave him pneumonia or something like that, and he died because he was waking up. She was an alchemist too.
Just in defense of fake and gay, like the Flintstones are also fake and gay, but that's in a good way and cool.
Look at that homunculus right there, bro. The little alien, the little green man.
Although, is he a homunculus or are they? That's kind of like what I really think is the issue here.
They must be, because the Jetsons are contemporary with them and live right above them. They come down on the Christmas special and hang out together. Like they know the Flintstones are down there. Like it's like Telegraph Island.
So like this is like a.
What are they called? The Jets? You said the Jetsons are
the Jetsons are contemporary. They live at the same time. The Jetsons come down from the clouds on the Christmas episode. And
you haven't seen my episode about that?
Prehistoric times.
No,
it's like
bro.
It's like Westworld or like a park.
So would this be in reference to the Nephilim story? What do you think?
You didn't see seen Jetsons Meet the Flintstones, the cassette tape? You haven't even seen the movie?
Anunnaki. Also, this seems very.
You watched Naked Lunch before you watched this, dude.
Yeah, bro.
This seems very.
Brutal.
This
you
seems
made
very
me, bro.
attuned to the.
There's a palm tree in the back too. The palm tree is esoteric AF, bro.
To the Anunnaki story.
The palm tree is the phoenix. The palm tree is the phoenix. That's the reincarnation.
Yeah.
That's the
always coming out of an oasis. It's the symbol for Guam. Guam's flag.
The palm trees aren't actually trees; they're giant plants.
Because as you know, God hates flags, but it's okay because the Guam flag is cool.
You got palm tree and Templars, right? You got the palm tree in there too. So there's some esoteric goodness. I'm gonna be doing an esoteric. I'm gonna be doing a palm trees in the occult story episode here soon. So keep an eye out for that. I've been doing some heavy research in regards to that. So it's all alchemical. But I wanted to ask you anything that we've talked about, because I know you've done that Shrek thing, the whole like how Shrek is maybe esoteric in some sort of weird alchemical way. Like, are any of the things that we've talked about today relating to that? Because I found that like super interesting, and I think that was like one of the first things I came across of your work. It was like this idea of Shrek having like some deeper, darker secret than what's really put out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about. I mean, I think so. So yeah, I feel like Shrek
that dude's
is
a homunculus.
About,
look, the little guy.
No, so yeah, okay, so exactly. So I think the humans. What you're finding is the idea is that the humans are the homunculus, and that you're there. There's an opportunity for you to be like a godlike being that's creating homunculus, but instead, a lot of people are being turned into because they think they're being empowered by becoming a homunculus. I would say the thing for you to watch or read would be Immortal, Nico Pov, is it Nikopol trilogy.
Whoa, dude, watch out.
Nikopol trilogy is about Egyptian gods that are hovering over New York City or Paris, depending on if you're reading it or
The
watching
Black
it.
Knight satellite.
Yeah, and there's this. It's in the future, and so this movie was like way too much for people in the year 2004. I think people weren't
It's
ready
too much
for
for
it.
me right now, bro.
But it's to transhumanism has taken off, and they kind of aesthetically compensate for their. I mean, the story. Everyone, a lot of this is one of the first movies to be made. Like you've seen Sky Capture in the World of Tomorrow, where it's all green screen. This movie's all green screen before that, and has CGI characters. A lot of the characters are CGI or partially CGI because they're saying that the genetic modification is making them look like that, look like they're CGI. So
What?
yeah, like so then you meet this girl who's this perfect new transhumanist person that's kind of the Madonna character, and you also she's special, right? Because she's the new she's the next thing to happen in humanity, which is really interesting. Oh, that girl's related to her, I guess. That's interesting. But basically, I think it's Horus who comes down. It's been a while since I watched it, but he comes down and he takes the leg off of this guy, and he puts his own metal leg onto like his own god. He cuts his leg off and replaces it with his own god leg, and so now this guy has this huge, heavy leg that weighs him down like an anchor, and he's just stuck on the ground. And then he gives him power, and he's like, "I give you power now to walk, and you can do whatever I tell you can do." And that's it. So now he's super powerful because he can move and even move that leg, but he can only do what he's told, right? And what he has to do is he has to help this god who's inside of him mate with this transhumanist girl in order to, like, I don't know. It has to do with the Egyptian gods. There's like a whole reason to it. You should
Well, that's
definitely
the
check
whole
it out.
thing. Yeah, that's the phallus, and she impregnates herself and brings forth was it Horus and Set and Osiris. So you have that whole
What movie is this?
Homunculus.
Immortal. It's called Immortal.
Wow, looks cool.
Have you
Yeah, it's
seen the
based.
Trump versus the Illuminati though? That came out in 2020. Have you guys seen that yet?
What?
Trump
I
versus
haven't watched the
Illuminati.
whole
Is it
thing,
a
but
satire?
It's
it's
sick, bro.
It's
Thank
like
God.
a CGI movie that is pretty sweet, where he's
I
like,
didn't see that. I saw the Alex Jones video game. I watched.
That's
the whole thing for
hilarious.
that.
A Trump
Best
clone, a Trump Chinese clone, bro. So we're talking about Homunculus. You got everyone go watch this movie. It's on Amazon Prime. Yeah, it's sick. It's sick, bro. It's so sick.
That-
I can't even find. Yeah, there's the alien that has to deal with him.
Was this made
Where's
by
he? Is he
QAnon
in it? Who
people?
plays
What the
him?
hell?
Or it's AI generated? I'm
It's
so lost.
it's not AI generated, but it's CGI. So
I didn't even see
Oh
Trump
my
in anytime you.
yeah,
Did you try to find a scene with Trump in it? It's got to be in there.
Well,
Aliens
Trump
are
is
fucking gay.
the Chinese clone of Trump is in this alien outfit or in this spacesuit. But they're not
never
showing. They just
Who
never show
made
the
this?
picture.
They're like, you gotta pay. We're not giving you the milk for free.
Yeah, because
bro.
it
You
doesn't
gotta
look
pay to
perfect.
see this
I
Chinese
guess.
Trump.
How about scene?
It's
Are they
free
also
on Prime, I
scene?
think.
Weird.
No
Let's-
scene. They just don't want you to see his face ever. Oh, there.
Right there. Oh, dude, that's
Oh, that
sick,
didn't
bro.
look good.
Look how realistic that was. Look how realistic that is, dude.
Oh
go.
man,
It looks like a homunculus version
It looks
of
like
Something.
Thunderbirds, dude. It looks like they got a marionette in there.
Looks like Woody from Toy Story.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It looks like a wooden marionette.
All right. Well, now I'm sold. You know,
Who the
that's
hell
definitely
took
what I'm
the
watching.
time to make this?
I mean, I would
Bro.
do it if I had this. Someone asked me to get involved with this project. I would have said,
Damn,
yeah.
bro, he's got
Don't
Well, I guess
don't hate
about
the
that.
player, hate
Dude
the
is
game.
chewing food. He's got teeth.
Yeah,
I
you
would've
can't hate
done-
a man with a dream.
Great too.
Picture a gray alien brushing his teeth.
Is there anything you want me to show before I show them where they can get like Chosen One stuff? First off, like you guys should know that there's like the Chosen One issue 2 Secret Society. We just need 10 more people to kickstart it because I've been wanting to read the sequel so that I can get involved. I want to be in issue 3. I want to be a character. I want to be like the Bob Dobbs of the Chosen One. So
Yo,
please,
can you read that, bro?
would
Can you
be
read that
awesome.
there?
Get the
What?
alternate cover with me on it. There is a Mystic Mark alternate cover.
Cartantia?
3 podcasters uncover a secret society of the Podfather, who also
gonna go-
controls access to Inner Earth, Lemuria, and Tartantia. Are you telling me that this isn't... Guys, 10 more. 10
You've
more
heard
followers.
of our word. You've heard of Tartaria. Now put them together, and you get Tartantia.
Yeah, Tartantia, probably. Because it even sounds more like Tartantia or don't Tartantia. I think you need to get to that. And then also, let me go to the YouTube. Juan on One. One-on-one podcast. Make sure you guys follow One-on-One. He's growing. He's making strides. He's got amazing things going on.
Man, the name Juan is so versatile for puns, man.
Yeah, it's one of a kind. It's true. And the Longo episode is good. Make sure you guys check out anything with Longo and Juan together because they've got a sassy rapport that just it really makes you just want to be there. You know what I mean? I love these guys.
He's my homunculus. That's why.
Yeah, dude. What a dream. What a dreamboat. And then you can also go to his Patreon through there. So easy to support. He's always got cool stuff that comes out. So that's pretty sweet. Also, Mark's here. So why don't you go? My family thinks I'm crazy. I'll go to his YouTube for a second.
Yeah.
I'll do that first because it'll also take you to the website afterwards. But from here, subscribe. Get up on his videos. He's got a Walter Bosley talk that he just did. Not recently. It's 4 months, yeah. Old World Florida. Is it the same one? No, it's a different one. And then videos. 3 weeks. Saved by Angels. Here's recent. I'll take that. Coco Pelli. I haven't seen this one yet. Ian Ferguson. I'll check this out.
Dude. The Rock Fins where I post all the new stuff. This is all old. I'm about to put a lot of the newer videos on YouTube soon. So look forward to that, folks. Yeah. Listen to the podcast. That's where you stay up to date with all the newest episodes.
Word.
The one that you guys did was amazing, by the way. Really good.
Sweet. There's 420 episodes.
Hey.
I'm the 420th episode. That's not bad. So yeah, myfamilythinksimcrazy.com. If you want to hear that conversation or see it, I forget if it's seeable yet, but it's listenable for sure right there on the podcast link. And super good conversation. We had fun. So check that out.
Yes.
That's pretty sweet.
Technically episode 353, but there's just so many episodes, including the series Juan and I did together, Illuminati Confirmed, which you can still get there, plus the show that Juan and I do together on our Patreons, respectively, that I mentioned before, Volcanic Fridays, where we don't just talk about Volcanic, we talk about creeps like William Burrows, who we mentioned today.
Yeah.
Illuminati confirmed.
Right. And then also Linktree for VBDC. Check out Venice Beach Dub Club's new he's got the Tis the Season for Christmas Time thing. It is now time for the Christmas time thing.
For 25 days a year, this song gets some traffic, so there's no video for it, but it's my Christmas song. Go check it out.
I played it the other day when I was setting ornaments up with my mother and my brother and his girlfriend.
That's awesome.
For the Christmas time thing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I also just executive produced a Christmas song for my friend Conquer Spliff that's going to come out on Friday. So I'm really excited about that. It's like a soul oldies sound. But yeah, I've got next year, everything's coming. The album's coming, actually live shows for the first time in almost 4 years lined up and everything. So next year is going to be big. For this year, just listen to Christmas time thing. And thanks to everyone in the chat. A lot of people in the chat, which gave me a little bit of dopamine to see like a good number. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys for being
great.
here.
This is fun. We gotta do this more often.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Gotta stop ignoring me.
I miss Pink Trip though. If we just and then we'd have.
All right, I'll do your show. No, yeah, for sure. Let's set it up. I'm sorry. Let's set it up ASAP. I'm down.
Shout out to Pink Trip though. I don't want. We're not gonna. We miss him.
Forget him. No, I'm just kidding.
Even with a good panel, would have been a little better with Pink Trip.
No, he's sweet. He's a sweet man. Some people hate him. Some people love him. I love that some people hate him and some people love him. I think that's good.
Why do people hate Pink Trip? What do you do?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's like
some people's Juan Williams. I'm in this chat. I'm some people's Juan Williams, like the one guy that's like an idiot. Like that's a one.
Everybody
idiot.
wants to be in.
One,
yeah, everybody wants to be their color of the rainbow, bro. And I'm just Mary Poppins. I don't know. And Gumwoo, you'll never know. But if you go to tartarinova.com, you might be able to find him if you learn Korean because his name is a secret. But good luck. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks for being here. Peace.
Bye.